Good morning, everybody. This is Travis Winfield with the Enlisted Leadership Foundation. I am joined by my partner in crime, our El Presidente, David Deary, and welcome to the first ever virtual CPO Pride Day 2020. We couldn't let this year go by without recognizing all of our amazing goats out there, and now we are worldwide. So if you are watching this, help us out. Hit the share button, share it to your group, share it to your pages, and let's get this thing started, guys. We have an amazing lineup today waiting for you. So, of course, we're going to hear shortly from our illustrious Presidente. We have an amazing video that's been put together. We have Miles McPherson. We have MCPON Mike Stevens. We have the illustrious CMC Rosa Wilson. We have Command Master Chief Kareem Cole in the house. And then, of course, our Force Reserve Command Master Chief Chris Coates. And then, of course, we'll finish up for the day, guys. Look, again, I could not be more excited to be a part of this today. And without further ado, this is how we do. Yes, whoop, whoop, power to the mess. We do not let COVID keep us down, so we are going to keep things strong. So without further ado, if you are in a position to stand up, we have our very own Stu Headley that's going to lead us in our national anthem. So
the land of the free and the home of the brave.
all right, everybody. So apologize for that initial thing. This is the challenges right out the box that we have with going live, but we caught the end of it. That was our illustrious Stu Headley leading us in the national anthem. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Presidente, David Deary.
All right, everybody. So apologize for that initial thing.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, like Travis said, we had a little bit of technical problem there. Travis, let's, I can't just let it go. Why don't you rewind it and let's start over. Take it over again from the top, please. I want people to be able to hear Stu.
Our Presidente, David Deary.
Bear with me.
Good morning. Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, like Travis said, we had a little bit.
So bear with me here. We are going to try this one more time.
You can't just let it go. Why don't you rewind it? Let's start over. Take it over again from the top, please.
Oh, say, can you see me by the dawn's early light? What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that
That's
our
good.
flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, let's try this again. So, David, talk to us, my man. Tell us
Hey,
what
to
the
I'll tell you,
Pride Day.
It's funny, with our theme is leadership in action. I guess you just saw a little bit of leadership in action. Yeah, it's we rehearse it, we practice it. We did it 3 separate times. It's still the day of where it doesn't go off. It goes off flawless in rehearsal, but then in action, we have the problem. Kind of like when you take your car to the shop, making all the noise, but as soon as you get the mechanic there, they're like, yeah, I don't hear anything. So be that as a way. Hey, listen, everybody, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to tune in here. Travis, thanks for helping me out. Thanks for being all the behind the scenes work. And we got some great speakers lined up, like you mentioned. There's a lot of work that goes into Chief Petty Officer Pride Day. And just, somebody had asked a question to us recently, said, how can we have a CPO Pride Day event without chief selectees? Well, we're proud of being chief petty officers with or without selectees. And we had to make a decision with this COVID environment on whether we were going to do CPO Pride Day at all. But we got a great team. We have a great group of volunteer committee members led by retired Master Chief Chris Thorne. And they were up for the challenge. This isn't what we wanted. And to be honest, I hope it's the first and the last time we ever have to do a virtual Chief Petty Officer Pride Day. But it's important to mark the event nonetheless. And so we bought these, we had a limited number of coins to sell, and you guys have been eating those up, and that's been great. And the coin was designed, the platform was discovered, all the work. And I just want to give a quick little shout out to a couple of people. First, Jessica Saunders and Amanda Munson, they were the leads. They were the co-leads for this event, working alongside Chris to pull the team together, and then we had Randy Griffith. Man, Randy's been helping out for a number of years. And here in a minute, as soon as I get done, you're going to see a video that Randy and his team put together. It's about 23 minutes long. But I'll tell you, man, it's a real great in-your-face reminder of being a chief petty officer. What's so unique about doing it this way, Travis? I hope we get, we may only get 10 people watching us live today, but if the Lockdown Leadership Summit is any indication, we're going to get 10,000 to look at this later. And what's exciting to me is a lot of those viewers are going to be E4s, E5s, people that don't know anything about Chief Petty Officer Pride Day, that after listening to this video coming up, after hearing the speakers, boy, it's going to be a real motivator, right? To get the game if you're not in the game, to stay in the game if you are in the game. And again, leadership in action as our theme. This is being exemplified right here. And the last couple of people right now I just want to highlight is Dean Kushikuma and Matt Bizjack. And both of them work behind the scenes doing Comrel events. What's also great is coming up here, you just heard from Stu Headley a minute ago, we have our Stu Headley Legacy Award that highlights leadership in the volunteer space. And both Dean and Matthew over the years have been recipients of this leadership award before they started helping out with the Enlisted Leadership Foundation. So soon, you guys should all be seeing something in email about applications being submitted. What's unique about the Stu Headley Award is, a lot of leadership, a lot of awards in general, when you submit a sailor, it has to go up through the chain of command and get your commanding officer's chop before it gets sent off. Well, we designed this that we give one for E5, one for E6, and one for E7s. And I should say one for chief petty officers, not E7s. And an E5 can submit another E5. It doesn't have to go through the chain of command. We want to remove any fear that, man, I don't know if I can write it correctly. I don't know if it's going to read well enough. I don't know if I have what it takes to put that different. Listen, I don't care if you put it on a napkin and send it in, right? We'll take a look at it. So don't let routing something up your chain of command. Let your chain of command know, by all means, you're submitting somebody, but don't let the fact that you may not get a CO's endorsement letter stop you. We get nominations E5 to E5, E6 to E6, and then on up the chain. So listen, we'll talk more here in a few minutes. Travis, back over to you.
All right, guys. Well, look, David, thank you so much for that. And again, I'm so excited for our lineup today. And again, if anybody has any questions throughout the day, we are live streaming this. So if you have questions or anything like throughout the day, we're only going to be going for about a little over 2 hours. But at the end of it, throughout the time, just go ahead and drop your questions, and we'll try to answer them live. Each speaker is going to do their part, and then afterwards, we're going to do a short Q&A session with each speaker. So please be interactive. This is our day. This is for people who are not a Chief Petty Officer listening in. Let me tell you, this is what makes us the most powerful organization in the world, the Chiefs Mess. To this day, I just love being a part of it. So without further ado, let's do this, show this amazing video that our committee put together.
In the U.S. Navy, the Chief Petty Officer is often referred to as on to get things done. This means that the sailor who is chosen to lead the Navy's Chief Petty Officers has reached the pinnacle of what it means to be an American sailor. This leader of leaders is known as the MCPON, the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy.
Overall, it was accepted by the enlisted personnel with open arms, but there was reluctance from the officers' standpoint.
We had a discussion, and he said, I'm in the process right now of signing an order out, 0 tolerance for all the officers in the Navy. I said, but yeah, but what about the other leadership? I mean, there's as much leadership going on in the Chiefs Mess, and you need to make a 0 policy for everybody. The Chiefs can handle that.
When I joined the Navy, I was told by chiefs that, if you needed a wife, we'd have put one in your sea bag.
We are spouses. We didn't come in a sea bag. We got married with legitimate reasons, and we deserve the respect owed us.
I always believed the Navy's physical fitness standards were a joke. I hated that tobacco use was all over the Navy.
As soon as I landed, they said, Admiral Border needs to talk to you immediately. So I called him, and he says, MCPON, what in the hell are you doing?
We always must retain our identities as Chief Petty Officers. We can never let that distinction blur. We can never become too embedded within the naval establishment that we forget where we came from.
And the Chief Petty Officer is where I put everything. Not the seniors and not the masters, but the Chief Petty Officer. They are closer to the deck plate than anyone.
The thing that's most enjoyable about this job is the fact that you get to travel so many places and stand shoulder to shoulder with sailors. It is the adrenaline that runs the machine.
In my 32 years, there has been no greater honor than having earned the title Chief and the responsibility to our sailors, their families, and our military that comes with that title. Booyah.
I'm excited to be a chief, join into this fraternity, filled brothers and sisters all over the world. This is a great dream come true for me. I'm proud to be here. Well, I think it's who we want to be. CPO. Who we want to be. CPO. What time is it? Due to the place of stage of my commander and the inability of my spring to push the commander to go to Korea. However, it is my firm conviction that the correct local time is what time? Boom! How's your
So our theme this year is leadership in action. Could you tell us a little bit about what that means to you? I think it goes back to the roots of deck plate leadership and just being out there in the forefront, getting dirty with your sailors, doing the nitty gritty, and just letting them see you in action. That way they follow in your footsteps on how to properly do things.
Leadership in action is something that I would categorize as being present, being present in your sailors' lives, being present in the division, being present within the wardroom and the mess, and leading by example.
Excellent.
I would say that leadership in action to me takes many different forms. The primary method for leadership in action for me would be being able to swing into action without necessarily worrying about everything else. So we had our fire on board the USS Bonhoeffer, and everything was developing so quick that we didn't have time to sit down and think about every single aspect. It was everybody knew what role they needed to play. The crew was trained well. Everybody knew how to get the job done and how to keep each other safe. And we were able to enact those methods and make sure that everyone made it out alive.
Specific events where when we say leadership in action, you're like, oh, you know what, that reminds me of so-and-so doing this during this part of what was going on.
So on that morning, running down the pier and being at the bottom of the ramp for the first explosion and just seeing debris flying everywhere and seeing it was everybody making sure everyone was okay. I'll never forget after the explosion, clearing the pier and on the run back, having to help one of our fallen shipmates off the pier, and just seeing the look in his eyes, and then seeing our HMCS that was at the end of the pier, just ready to render that medical assistance. Like he knew what the game plan was, and Senior Chief Stark just jumped into action and made sure that everybody was taken care of.
When the fire first broke out on the USS Bahamrashard, the leadership was present at all levels, whether it was peer-to-peer leadership between shipmates, doing buddy checks before they would fully kit out and report to fight the fire, whether it was on the front lines, sending hose teams in and task directing where to concentrate the firefighting effort. There was leadership present at the command tent where all of the information was flowing to and going both up and down the chains of command in order to better inform the leadership and how to focus the firefighting efforts in order to win against an enemy that was something that we hadn't ever encountered before.
Is there anything that stands out to you as, I'm so glad I had this preparation, or I'm so glad this mentor did this with me because it set me up for success?
So I would say the preparation for the entire crew, the training, the ability for everybody to just swing into action and get things done. While everybody had that fear in the back of their mind, I don't think anyone was scared because we were properly trained. We were ready to get stuff done. We knew what it took. And not once did I ever have to worry if somebody else had my back, because we're a strong crew and we knew what we needed to do.
To that.
The thing that I was so impressed about was how rapidly information was flowing, and how well the other ships and commands along the waterfront stepped up to respond to each other. And so the integration was amazing. I was getting reports and calls from fellow intelligence officers on the other ships. We were working to share information, DC plates, knowing that ours weren't accessible because of the fire, so we were able to get other DC plates from other L-class ships that would help us frame the problem and better combat the fire. The biggest thing was that we could pivot dynamically when we did come up against certain impediments. We were able to figure out quick workarounds and things, whether it was a breakdown in communications because of different radio frequencies, or we were missing certain pieces of gear. Those items came from other commands and allowed us to continue the effort forward and overcome those minor obstacles.
Afterwards, when you look back, was there anything that you thought, you know what, I'm never gonna leave this as just a check in the box or a signature? I'm really gonna dig into this or that with my junior sailors from now on.
I would say that firefighting has always been something that has always been on the forefront of my mind, especially being from the submarine community. I think that the big focus that I would take would be making sure that my sailors know, no joke, how to combat a casualty. What are the emergencies? Because you don't know what you don't expect. So things could happen at any minute and you don't know how to or what to react. Your body just kicks in with that instinct. And if you're not trained, you're going to get blindsided. So.
Sailors from now on?
I think for me as a chief, I kind of want to get back to another ship so I can take the lessons learned from USS Bonhomme Richard and make sure it never happens again. I believe the crew of 1,200 on board USS Bonhomme Richard are going to do the exact same thing that I plan on doing, and just flooding the fleet with information and keeping people engaged and motivated to where if there is ever a fire, it doesn't get to where it did on USS Bonhomme Richard. We can tackle it as soon as it comes up.
I feel that the training is one of those things that it becomes muscle memory. If you are constantly drilling, whether it's either just a rehearsal of concept drill, what would you do in the case of a fire? Where are the repair lockers? What are the escape routes? How do we handle these kinds of scenarios? Or if it's actual training in a firefighting simulator, where you're donning the equipment and enacting those motions to actually combat a fire. Everybody's training is what they fell back on, and it allowed them to react and respond without having to think about it. And that was one of the greatest strengths that we had, is we were a well trained and well rehearsed crew. And there was no struggle in the chain of command on taking orders or responding. Everybody recognized there was a need and responded to the requests and the actions that were necessary, without anyone's egos getting into the way.
As soon as it comes up.
Are there any lessons learned or words of wisdom you want to share with the rest of the mess?
All millennials are not created equal. We discovered that with the junior sailors on board USS Bonhomme Richard. Again, throwing on that PPE or the FFEs and just getting after it, running towards the fire and not away from it.
Fantastic.
Oftentimes I feel like the mess doesn't take our junior sailors' capabilities for what they're worth. We're often, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it, or our generation was better for X, Y, and Z. And the sailors that we have in today's Navy, as they're growing up, they're leaving boot camp. They're not as weak as what we think they are. They are willing to give you exactly what you train them for. So if you train them for firefighting, if you train them to be the subject matter expert, it's your training that develops our future sailors. So if you think the sailors suck, it's because you didn't train them properly. Luckily, we have a crew that our junior sailors knew what to do because we trained them for what to do.
Excellent. If you had to pick one thing that a mentor said to you while you were coming up, and pass that on to the next generation? If you only pick one thing, what would you pass on?
I've had several people that have given me very good advice. The one that sticks to my mind the most would be CTR Master Chief Denise Vola always told me, expect what you inspect. I.e., you're not going to get something that you have not verified is going to be the product that you expect. You don't want to show up to game day and be blindsided by something. You have no excuse if you didn't go through and verify it prior to showing up on game day.
And what would it be?
I learned from NCCS Martinez. He's over in NRD Portland right now. His motto was obsessed with success. And when you obsess on success, everything else comes naturally because you're running towards accomplishing stuff. And when you eat, breathe, and sleep success, it comes naturally. And when stuff like this happens, you're prepared to combat whatever comes at you.
It's hard to focus it down to one particular thing, but I think ownership and responsibility. When you take a pride and ownership of your ship, then you have a vested interest in taking care of and protecting that. You take ownership of your division. That's your family. That is your your home, and that ownership, you're going to protect everybody and everything that is part of that, and you're going to go the extra mile to ensure that it's taken care of. When people just view it as a job or it's just a piece of metal, that's where you see a breakdown. So the ownership and the love and pride that these sailors have put into this, it's something that's tangible and that carries forward. And so I feel that you should always take that same level of pride of ownership with everything that you do.
Thank you. Is there anybody you want to call out? Any shout outs you want to make?
Fleet Master Chief Osborne. I've known him for a better part of 8 years, and every time I see him, always motivates me and always keeps me engaged with where I'm going. Same Chief Realbit, he's out there in NRD New England. He helped me get to where I am today, and going back to Same Chief Martinez, just he's contagious with the motivation that he has, and I hope that I can be that for sailors someday.
Just our crew, our whole crew did amazing. I was truly thankful for how we all came together that day. The entire waterfront of San Diego, the entire Chiefs mess around the entire country, we received so much support, so much effort, so many people came together to make sure that this crew was taken care of.
I just want to thank all of the chiefs and petty officers that have trained me coming up through my naval career, and all of the senior officers and peers that have mentored me along the way. And
wow, great stuff. Great stuff. So, David, you need to turn on your microphone and your camera there, buddy, and we're gonna keep this thing rolling, man. What an amazing video that was. So, thanks again to all the people that were involved to put that together. So, without further ado, David, I think you got the first speaker up to bat, right?
Yeah, I did. That was really something. Just a couple of things that I took away towards the end there. All millennials aren't created equal. Man isn't created equal. We aren't created equal, right? And don't ever think that people don't pay attention to what you're saying. When you're a leader, people are watching you. Just like when we were young, E4s and E5s, and we were watching those chiefs and senior chiefs, and we're taking stock. You're now expect what you expect. Obsessed with success. Trust and verify. Don't ever think that, I'm micromanaging them. You're not micromanaging. You're leading. That's being a leader in action. And I want to take a minute now and introduce another leader in action by the name of Miles McPherson, who's on the screen with me. A little bit about Miles before I turn it over. Miles played for, first off, he played in the NFL. All right. How cool is that? San Diego Charger, from 82 to 85, and then God had a call on his life. God has a call in all of our lives. And he responded to that call. And he, over time, after some prayer, some education, and opportunity, and he started the Rock Church in 2000. And Miles, I think if I remember, that church started in the Aztec Bowl of San Diego State.
Well, we started at Montezuma Hall, and then sometimes we had church out there in the bowl there on campus. Open air theater. Open air theater,
right.
Yep.
So and I encourage you guys to go back and read on our Facebook page, on our website, Miles' complete bio. But towards the end, you're going to see it says, recently God has uniquely positioned Miles to address a topic that's been heavy on the heart throughout his life, and that's the racial tension and division. And Miles is not here because of that, but as God's timing would have it, that happens to be taking place, and he's here. And he has a book, this book here called The Third Option. He may or may not talk about this, but I think, so I'd encourage you guys, and we'll put a link for this later. It's a really good read. So Miles, we have not this first time actually meeting you. So it's a pleasure. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you to Emmanuel and your staff. Thank you for accepting our invitation to be here.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you. And I want to thank all
Hey, Miles, I hate to interrupt. I want to make sure everybody hears you. We're getting some feedback on your side, on your microphone. We're getting some it's not coming through very clearly. But man, I want to make sure. I want to jump in real quick, make sure we get this so everybody can hear you great.
Does that sound better?
It's still David, are you hearing it also?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm hearing it also. Is your volume turned down?
You want me to turn it down?
Maybe, because it may be coming back through the speaker.
How about that?
Yeah, it's still a little garbled. Emmanuel, I know you can hear him. If you're able to, are you able to help out there on his end?
Or even a headphone? Be patient, folks. We appreciate you.
Yeah, listen, I'm excited to hear from you, Miles. Yeah. I want to make sure it's coming across clear, buddy.
Can you hear me now?
Miles, yeah, we hear you, but there's static as you come through. And listen, we're in a no judgment zone here. So I just don't want you to feel pressured or feel embarrassed. Don't be at all. Trust me, we had to start all over again when we started it because we made some technical mess ups, even after rehearsing this a couple times. So,
I don't know. Yeah, he's not with me here, so I have no idea how to fix it.
All right. Well, no worries. Well, we'll I think we're gonna have to muddle through it here. Let me see if we can.
What do you think, Travis?
Yeah, it might be tough here, man. I think we're just gonna have to roll through it, guys. So everybody just gonna have to bear with it. It's gonna be a little staticky. But Miles, I'm excited to hear from you, buddy.
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I need to pray. Lord, I pray for technology in Jesus' name. Clear up the technology. Is it still staticky, David? I can't hear you at all now.
Because I'm on mute. Just mess with you. I got Emmanuel here, and he asked, do you have a set of headphones in your office?
Yeah, let me get it.
Cool. Hey, guys, while we're waiting for Miles to come back, listen, I'm putting a phone number in the chat. The first person to text me at that number is going to get an autographed copy of Chief Petty Officer's Guide, autographed by Fleet Kingsbury, Paul, who rewrote this. So the text, first person to text it, and then I'll write you back and get your address.
Does that sound better?
Oh, fantastic. Golden,
good.
Brother.
You are the man. You are the man. Thank you so much. Well, listen, let me get my clock because I want to respect your time. I'm going to want to welcome everybody and thank you all for serving our country. I mean, the military is so special to all of us, and we want you to know that we all appreciate you. I encourage our church on a regular basis, whenever they see people in the military, anywhere around the country or the world, to just go up and thank you. So I want to say thank you to you. My dad served in the military. My dad also was a police officer in New York City. My son is a police officer here in San Diego. And so we respect and honor all of you who serve us. My name is Miles McPherson. I'm from New York. I played in the NFL for 4 years. I grew up in Long Island. And when I was 8 years old, Martin Luther King was killed. And I remember what I felt, how unfair it was, but I also remember what I thought. What can we do? So fast forward 3 years ago, I started writing a book called The Third Option, and this is the book. And you talk about leadership in action. Leadership in action is what we need in our country right now, and not necessarily on a macro level, even though that's true at every level of society, not referring to anyone specific, but from a personal level, that we all need to be leaders in how we are treating people, viewing people, because we can get poisoned by the rhetoric we hear in the media, on social media, from our friends. And so I want to encourage you with a message about how you can engage in this and address the racial division that all of us are impacted by. You know, when I wrote the book, it wasn't nearly as vitriol as it is now. And I remember writing in the introduction how it impacts all of us. And at the time, there were a lot of people who could have said, well, it doesn't impact me. But today, I don't know if anybody can say that. But I want to start with this riddle. And I'll share the riddle with you, and I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. But because we're not talking, I'll just tell you the answer. But if an alligator and a bear had a fight, who would win? If an alligator and a bear had a fight, who would win? Now, you guys are all military people, and you'll appreciate the answer. It depends on where they fight. If they fight in the water, the alligator wins. If they fight on the land, the bear wins. When it comes to this racial tension, it depends on how you are going to fight it, and depends on how you face it, is how you address it, is how you're going to even survive it. In our culture, we have us versus them. And whenever you watch the news or get in any conversation, it's about my side against your side, for or against Black Lives Matter, for or against the police, Republican or Democrat, for or against immigrant. And everything's about us versus them. I win, you lose. I'm right, you're wrong. And that is the tension in culture, in the media, I'm sure in your families and friends. It's always about what side you're on. And depending on what side you pick, you are the enemy of the other side. That's the alligator fighting in the water. There's no relevance to the water. It's just one medium of how you're going to fight. And that's what you see in culture. And if you get into that war where you have to win arguments, you're always going to lose. And what I mean by that, if you're walking around trying to prove everybody that they're wrong and you're right, you're going to be fighting for the rest of your life. And so that's one way of battling the racial tension. The third option, which is what this is about, is a fight on land, and that is to honor what we have in common, that we are all more similar than different. Y'all in the military, y'all spend weeks and months and whatever on your ship, you get it. People from all walks of life, male, female, on the ship for months and months and months, different backgrounds, different ways of looking at things. However, you realize that you all have to eat. You all have to sleep. You all have families. You all want to have relationships. You all want to have purpose in your life. You all have bones, blood, muscles, etc. And you're all made in the image of God. You all have full humanity. If you don't believe in God, at least that you're human and everybody's equally human. And if we were to focus, instead of my way is better than your way, that's fighting in the water. My way is superior to your way. My view is better than your view. Instead of fighting that battle and trying to pick a side, what if we focused on what we had in common and what we shared? And this is exactly what y'all do. Y'all bring all those different cultures. And by the way, though your culture is different, what we share is that we both have culture. And what we share is that we both honor our culture, and we enjoy our culture, and our culture has benefits. I'm probably good and bad. You bring all that to the ship and you say, I got one goal, is to achieve the mission. You expect what you inspect. I heard that quote was very good. You all are going by the same rules, and you all have the same goal, which is win whatever battle you're in or whatever exercise you're doing. You want to achieve the exercise in the amount of time that you're required. You all are united on what, and you're focused on what you share in common. And so the book is talking about, how do we do that? How can I look at people who I think are different than me? people who are on the other side of the aisle, the other side of the ideology. They have different ideology, different religion, different belief system, and really focus on what do we have in common. One of the ways to do that is to acknowledge that you have blind spot. Blind spots, plural. There are things you don't know, you don't know. A social narrative is a story that shapes how you see the world. Based on your parents and your family, your upbringing, you were told, and not necessarily maliciously, but the information you got from your family, your neighborhood, was those people are safe and those people aren't safe. Those people are smart, those people aren't smart. Those people work hard and those people don't work hard. You for whatever information, how you received it from your upbringing, you formed opinions about people. It's not necessarily malicious, it just is. And you grow up with these perceptions of people. The problem is that you only have a part of the answer. You only have part of the perspective. So you somewhat have blinders on. But any information outside those blinders is a blind spot. You don't even know what you don't know because those people you've never been around. And all of us have blind spots. So when we meet people that we don't know, I'm sure in the military, when you get to meet people from different parts of the country with different accents and different lifestyles, and you go, wait a minute, these people aren't what I thought, because we had a blind spot. One of those blind spots is saying you don't see color. I know it's well intended. I remember someone telling me the first time someone told me they didn't see my color, I thought they had an eye stigmatism. But really they said, I don't see your color. And I said, well, if you don't see my color, how do you know? If you don't see color, how do you know I have a color you don't see? There was a young lady who went and got a tan in Hawaii, and she was showing off her tan. She was white, and she went from less brown to more brown from laying in the sun for a week. And it's ironic how we celebrate a tan that we get in Hawaii, but we invalidate a tan that we get in the womb. All of a sudden, we don't see it. But yet when you get a tan in Hawaii, you want everybody to see it. Of course we see color. The blind spot is that I'm trying to build a bridge, but the actual impact of what you say can be offensive. A blind spot is the gap between your intent and the impact. Your intent of saying I don't see color is, hey, I want to build a bridge, but the impact is you've just invalidated someone's experience. It's a blind spot. It doesn't necessarily make you racist, but it doesn't mean it's not offensive. You can actually be racially offensive and not be racist. Now, there are racist people, don't get me wrong, but there's just some people who just say things they don't know they shouldn't say, like, I don't see color. So one thing you could do is to acknowledge and celebrate people's color, acknowledge and celebrate people's culture, because we all share in a color. Even white's a color. If you go to the dictionary, white's a color. In culture, we have white people and people of color, us versus them. That's what culture tells you. I'm going to tell you that white's a color. It is a color. And we're all different shades of brown. Matter of fact, white people can be white in the springtime, and when summertime, they can get brown or red. And then when they get cold, they turn blue. So white people have more colors than a lot of people. Little joke, but it's actually kind of true. But we're all just different. We all are colored in some way or fashion. And the last thing I'll say as my time runs out, to have a race consultation. A race consultation is because you see color. Every time you have a conversation with somebody, you're having a race conversation. You know you're talking to a white person, black person, Hispanic person. It's somewhat ignorant to say you don't see that. It's just a fact, like seeing a rose and saying, I don't know what kind it is. But a race consultation is where you actually allow people to self-disclose to you who they are instead of imposing on them your opinions, your assumptions based on what you learn from very little experience. So again, the third option is, how do we honor what we have in common? Every single one of us is equally human. Every single one of us, we have more similarities than differences. And if we focused on the things that we share, when you guys, ladies and guys, are on that ship, you're focused on the mission. That's what you share. And when you're focused on that, guess what? Relationships are established, respect is established, and you work together, and amazing things happen. Imagine if our country can do that. So that's my time is up. I know there's a Q&A, but I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Man, wow, that was amazing. I'm gonna kind of sit there and see if I can put you to solo layout. All right, hold on, I'm trying to work with this, but Miles, thank you so much, man. That was really fantastic. This thing is kicking my butt a little bit.
Just go to the other one. There you go.
Yeah, look at that. CNN, or Fox, whatever you want to watch.
Man, I tell you, Miles, it's so funny, man. I really appreciate you taking that and that talking about that topic, because that's something us at the Enlisted Leadership Foundation, we kind of took the bull by the horns when it first started coming out, and we did like a weekly deep dive to really talk through this. And so you just kind of hit it home, and it just really means a lot that you're able to take that. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and kick off the Q&A session for you, Miles. And David, why don't you go ahead and get started, buddy?
Yeah. Hey, and Miles, I don't know if I introduced Travis with Travis earlier. That's Travis Winfield. He's one of the board members with me. So, as you were talking, you're talking about building relationships, building rapport, right? And that's what leaders do. If you want to be an effective leader, you need to build rapport before you can start influencing people. You have to have a rapport with them. And by having, difficult conversations, I mean, let me ask you, and would you prefer somebody just asking you the tough conversation, or just kind of try to avoid it and be more concerned about hurting your feelings or being offensive?
Good question. I think we have to decide why you're having the conversation. Some people want to have the conversation because they want to win an argument. And I wouldn't have that conversation.
Yeah.
If you're having a conversation to win a friend, then I have the conversation. And so you have to decide why you're having a conversation. Just remember, I'm talking to two guys that look white to me, right? And you're talking to a guy who's light-skinned brown, right? We know that. You guys David has a white hat on. Spencer, I can't see your name underneath the thing, but Travis has a gray hat on. I see that, right? And so gray hair. Someone said it was snow on the roof, right? And so every time you have a conversation with any person, even yourself, you're having a race conversation. Your idea of that kind of a person is either being affirmed or expanded. And so I would start by just having a lot of conversations with people and acknowledging, hey, this guy is from the Philippines. Let me process how he is and and do that constantly. And you'll start to realize if you focused on the things that you share, then asking a question like, is there something I say that's offensive, right? I want to learn, not I'm going to prove you wrong. So I think first, acknowledge you always have a race conversation, and only have those conversations if you want to build relationships and grow and learn, versus trying to convince somebody of your opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point, Miles. We that's one of the conversations we've talked many times, that sometimes the challenge we have is the extremist position on either side.
Right.
Because what they do is you close your ears and you don't listen to the other side, and that's what causes the biggest divide. So you've heard me say this many times, David. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We need to listen twice as much as we speak, and sometimes if you listen, sometimes that can open things up. So, Miles, with that being said, I mean, with your experience, because you've obviously had your time in the NFL, then you found your calling, and you are an amazing leader in your own right? I know we've never met before, but I'm very familiar with your organization. I've been to your church, so with this, leading through this, how have you been able to effectively lead your organization through, let's call it what it is, these crazy apocalyptic, as some people say, times? And I'm sure you've heard that being said before too. So how have you been able to effectively lead people through this? Because that can be reign true whether you're in the military or in the church or wherever.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix my mic. Hold on a second.
We can hear you fine now. It started off for a second, but it's better now.
Good. Hopefully that's good. I'm looking at the chat. People saying static. Does that sound better?
Yes.
I pray, man, because this we haven't been down this road before, and we're literally saying, and it's a collective effort with our team. How do we best serve the people in our church? And because there's so many people in our church, and and all over the place. Luckily, we have technology. Luckily, we have online service that we're on every week and then stuff every day. But it's also a collection of wisdom. There's, there are a lot of people around the country, pastors that I have relationships with, who I call and we talk about what are you doing, and how every state's different. Some states can go back. Even though we can go back, you can only have 100 people, but we have 3,500 seats. So 100 people in that room, we're going to end up turning away a lot of people, making them mad. And so every church is different. Every state is different. Every governor is managing the situation different with different restrictions. And so we have a team keeping up with all the restrictions and all the different changes. And then we also have teams on the ground also monitoring how we're serving people. So it's a team effort.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I think we have David. You have one more question to ask.
Yeah, I don't want you. There's one question was asked inside the chat. So before you go, because I know I want to respect your time as well. So what was the greatest leadership advice you've ever received? Yeah.
I don't know if I can pinpoint one, but I will tell you, serve. And there was an Admiral Mike McCabe, who was a 3-star admiral. And I flew on to one of the aircraft carriers, spent the night. When we went to dinner at his house in Coronado, then we flew on the aircraft carrier, spent the night, and we were up all night talking about, war games from his perspective, And one of the things that he taught me and a lot of people in the military who were admirals and is that they were servants. Yeah. They wasn't like do this. They were servants. And I kept looking for the time he was going to, lower the boom. And he's just the sweetest guy in the world. And that was a big change because, I come from football. Right? People yelling at you, cursing at you all the time. It's in your face. And I'm sure he had his good face on because I was with him, right? But I've met William French was another admiral who went to our church, and and Greenett, Admiral Greenett, I actually stayed at his house when Admiral French's daughter was killed in Washington D.C. And again, they're gonna have their best face on me, but they were truly kind guys that were serving their troops and honored the people in the military. So that's probably the greatest thing I learned, and still trying to figure that out. Even though Jesus was the greatest servant, he died for us, right? Yeah. So it really comes from him. But you guys embodied it very well.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Well,
go ahead. I know we got other questions. Do you want to just answer them in the live?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer because real quick, Miles. I just before you go, the question was, so what is the place of faith in the Chief's Petty Officer mess and CPO mess? So and he said, how do you practice to speak from your faith in a way that isn't offensive to someone else? And I'll just answer that as the chief here. And William, I'll just tell you without getting into my testimony, but I just felt that God called me to stay in the military, to use whatever little bit of influence that I had to serve him. And so I never, as I moved up the food chain, if you will, wherever I went, I just shared my faith. And even as a command master chief, when I would do my initial calls to the Chiefs mess and the other pay grades, I just kind of put out there, I'm a born again Christian, and I come from a leadership perspective of practicing how Christ followed, how you led as a servant leader. I will advocate for you. I will do the best for you, but that's just the position I come from, is putting others first. And, I never, the only time anybody ever questioned that is I had a sailor one time come to my office and he complained about the evening prayer underway, because at 2200 at TAPS, 10 o'clock at night, you always said a prayer. And that the only complaint he gave was about saying a prayer underway. And I said, I'll pray for you. But, I actually found that I had a lot more, living my faith in the military was really easy. Honestly was. And when I would get done with those calls or sharing that with people, I would usually have somebody in the audience say, man, that encourages me to be able to live my faith. And that's what we do, is we just live our faith. We be authentic, live our faith. That's who we are.
Exactly. That's
good stuff. So Miles, listen, sincerely, it's great to have you. it's unique to have you, and it was very important for you to be here and share your message.
This is my pleasure. Can I pray for all of you?
Yeah, go please.
Lord, thank you for all these men and women who are serving our country. The Bible says there's no greater love that a man or woman can have for another man or woman than to lay down their life, which is exactly what you did. So we thank you for the sacrifice they make to be away from their families and to serve and to put their life on the line for our safety. So I pray you bless them. I pray for unity. I pray for clarity. I pray for protection. And we pray for our country that, Lord, we pray our country would bow its knee to you and honor you and love one another as you have loved us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks again, Miles. We'll be in touch, brother.
God bless you.
God bless you.
So without further ado, Dave,
wait, before you do that, listen, I'm not going to put it back out there, but the next person who texts me, first person to send a text, I'm going to send out a copy of Miles' book, The Third Option. Okay. So I already put the text at the phone number, so you have to go back and find it if you didn't write it down. All right, go ahead, Travis.
A treasure hunt now. You got to go find David's phone number now. All right, without further ado, David, I think you got somebody to introduce now, huh?
I do. Why don't you bring him into the house? Well, listen, MCPON Mike Stevens, how are you doing, Mike? You're muted right now, brother. Let's see. I got you.
How's
there
that?
You are.
Can you hear me?
Much better, much better. How are you?
That's good. That's what happens when you hit that mute button.
Yeah, I hear you. So listen, real quick, like I said with Miles, please go to our website, go to the Facebook page. You can read the full bio. But listen, I know that many of us don't like the full bios read, so I'm not going to read yours. But just Mike, I want to thank you for being here. He's currently serving as the National Executive Director for the Navy League. He was our 13th Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, and he transitioned out in 2016. I got to say, probably, I could not think of a better way to end my tour in the military than the whole time as the Region Southwest Command Master Chief, being able to be in your leadership mess. I appreciate the relationship that we've established, the time that we've got to spend together, and just allowing me to just be around and watch you as you engage in sailors across my whole region. So thanks for being here. And I look forward to hearing what you got to say for the next few minutes.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, David. I'm actually always surprised that you know me so well that you keep asking me to come back.
Well, you figure one of us will get it right one of these times, right? So practice makes perfect.
I'm like, just keep give me one more chance. We'll get this thing right. I appreciate you and Travis having me as a part of the CPO Pride Day. It's unique times. It's a unique event, but the show must go on, right?
Yes, sir. So listen, Travis is going to take me out, and the floor is yours.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Travis. And so I was also going to say to you and David, oh, by the way, thanks for the setup, having Miles McPherson before me. That doesn't seem fair.
We are givers, Mike.
Right. What a great speaker. What a great opportunity to hear what he had to say. I was going to, I had the kind of how I wanted to start off, but then I was listening to our chief petty officers talk about their experience, with the Bonhomme Richard, and what a crazy situation that must have been to be there. And I will tell you, I had something similar happen to me when I was a second class petty officer. So this is in 1991, and I was on board the USS Tripoli. I think it was February 18th. 1991, and we struck an Iraqi mine in the northern Arabian Gulf during Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I think it blew a 20-foot hole in the side of our ship and created a lot of damage and a lot of chaos. 4:30 in the morning that happened. So that's how we woke up. And as I was listening to the chiefs, and hearing them talk, I realized that they're going to have the same experience that I had and many others on board the Tripoli, is that their Navy careers will forever be changed. From that day forward, you don't look at things the same way. I will tell you that after that, you go through, you know what it's like going through general quarters drills, time and time again. And most of the times a sailor will go through their entire career and that's what their experience is. This is a drill, right? But once you go through an experience like that, it doesn't matter. They're never drills anymore. You realize just how important general quarters drills are. And it's that muscle memory and that training. You'll never go through another firefighting school again. You'll never go through another drill again where you just look at it as, something that you have to do. And it's kind of a pain in the backside to do it. It will forever change you. I know it did me. Anytime I went through a drill, it was almost like, you have this flashback that you're in that situation. You're not, but you know how easily you could go from calm to chaos. And so you want to make sure that your sailors are prepared, that you are making sure that you are leading your sailors through those drills, knowing that one day they could face the same situation that you did, and knowing that it was that training that you had that helped you get through that most challenging situation. So it was just listening to the chiefs really helped me to kind of reflect back on my own experience and the experience of the sailors that were with me on the Tripoli during that time. Okay, so I'll shift over to more about what I'd like to talk with the group. First, I wanted to thank all the participants for being on this live stream today. Sailors from around the world, all over the country, just taking time to take a knee and participate in some leadership development on the CPO Pride Day that David and Travis have been able to put together with their organization. So one of the things I wanted to just talk a little bit about is, it's this thing, I call it, don't lose yourself, improve yourself. And specifically, this is geared towards chief petty officers or petty officers as they promote up through the ranks. It's something that during my time in uniform, unfortunately I saw on more than one occasion is, you have this really good, stellar first-class petty officer. And all the things that they did up to that point as a young sailor all the way up through as a first-class petty officer, all the things that they did are what the CPO board recognized. They saw all the great work in their evaluations. They saw the awards. You read between the lines and the write-ups, and you can see what kind of person this petty officer is. And, the board has many steps and processes that they go through, but you're promoted based on who you are and what you've done and what they believe, what the chiefs believe you're going to do, what those master chiefs on the board believe you're going to do. And so this petty officer is promoted to chief petty officer, and then they go through, it's been many iterations of, initiation, induction, CPO 365, back to initiation. It all serves kind of the same purpose, is to, put you through this particular process where you're accepted into the chief's mess. Some people call it the rite of passage. And then you put on your khakis and you report to your first day of work, and then all of a sudden you're somebody else. And I could never understand that, and part of me wants to say that the chief's mess, I would say when I was a chief, we might have been guilty of some of that by trying to, change you in such a way that we took you away from yourself and we convinced you that you needed to be somebody else. So now you're a chief and now you need to be like this. Well, look, being a chief petty officer means added responsibility. You're going to be accountable for more things. You're going to be a department LCPO. You're going to have more sailors under you, so on and so forth. But that's not to take anything away from when you were a first-class petty officer, right? Because you were leading divisions, work centers. You had lots of responsibilities. You did a great job. Obviously, we promoted you to chief petty officer. And then for some reason, there's like this in some, not all, but in some of these new chiefs, this switch gets flicked on. And you can hardly recognize the person. I can remember one time as a command master chief, I had this great first class petty officer, made chief petty officer, and I observed this new chief the first couple of weeks, and I was just scratching my head because I'm thinking, who is this person? I mean, this person was an amazing first class petty officer, knew they would be an amazing chief, but all of a sudden they filled themselves somehow with this bravado. And I just watched this petty officer lose himself. And, you know, this was the kind of petty officer who was kind, respected, you know, loved to spend time with their sailors, you know, live by the golden rule, you know, those sorts of things. And then we put anchors on their collar, and all of a sudden they're loud and they're, you know, yelling at their sailors, and, you know, they're angry all the time, and, you know, so on and so forth. And I'm just thinking, what happened, you know? So I pulled this sailor off to the side and we went for a walk. And I said, look, I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, and that's where I came up with the term. I said, look, listen, don't lose yourself. You know, just improve yourself. We should all be looking for opportunities to get better every day. And over time, that will in part change us, right? But those changes are for the betterment, right? And this person just felt like they had to meet this new expectation. The chief's mess now expected a certain thing from them, different than who they were, and nothing could be further from the truth. You know, so look, it happens at all ranks, right? I've seen it happen when an E3 makes petty officer. I've seen it when a first class makes chief. I've seen it when a commander takes over command, right? I've seen it, you know, frankly, I've seen it when an 06 makes flag officer. You know, the good ones, they don't forget who they are. They don't forget who got them there. They don't forget what helped them to be successful, and they look for opportunities to improve and get better. But this flipping of the switch, becoming this person that nobody recognizes only because there's this false expectation of who they now should be. I mean, we all recognize that you're going to have more responsibility and more accountability, but we don't want you to become a new person, a different person, a worse person, right? So, you know, a little bit of tough talk, right? I mean, some people don't want to have those conversations because it doesn't feel motivational. You know, I think it's important to share that with you. Many of you that are watching this now will be promoted to chief petty officer in the next, you know, several months, whatever the timeline is for the Navy now, given these situations. And I just hope that you remember that, you know, go through this process. You'll be a first class, and then you'll be frocked to chief petty officer, promoted to chief petty officer. You know, you'll go home that evening, you'll come back to work the next day. Before you go back to work the next day, take a deep breath and just say, okay, how did I get to this point? You know, who was there for me? You know, what kind of person was I? Why did they promote me? Right? And remember that, and don't go to work, to your appointed place of duty the next day thinking you need to be somebody different. That's my point. Be a person of influence, right? Be a person of influence not through what you say, but be a person of influence through your actions. Right? Because anybody can say anything, but not anybody can do anything. Right? So be a person of influence, because, you know, you've probably heard this before, or at least some of you have. The true definition of leadership is one's ability to influence others. Right? Nothing more, nothing less. You could be a bad leader of influence, a good leader of influence. The thing that the two have in common is they're people of influence. So be a person of influence, but do that through your actions. There'll be plenty of time to talk, right? But spend time listening. Think about how you're doing business. Think about how you're carrying yourself physically, mentally, morally, spiritually. You know, how do you live your life in those different categories? Because your sailors, or the people that report to you, in many ways will become who you are. They will become who you are. They won't become who you say you are. They won't become the words that come out of your mouth. Not to say that the words that come out of your mouth don't matter, because they do. But you can't talk about, you know, how good you are. You can't influence people to be like you through your words primarily. They're going to be like you through your actions. And if you want the people around you to be good and decent and hardworking and committed sailors, then you need to be that person, because trust me, over time, they will become that person. And when you do that time and time again, then you'll develop this thing called reverence, right? Reverence is not what you say, it's what you do. It's people looking at you saying, I want to be like that person, not because of what they said, but because of how they carry themselves. If you just take a minute and you think about the people that you respect most in your life, right? Those are the people that you want to be like, or those people that have reverence. Those are the people that have carried themselves and lived their life in a way, both on and off duty, that inspired you, or they are inspiring you, right? And they are people of influence. And if you want to be that person, then live your life, like I said, on and off duty in that way. So don't lose yourself, improve yourself. Be a person of influence through your actions, not your words. Think about those pillars, right? Physical, mental, moral, and spiritual fitness. I call that the pillars of leadership fitness. And I'm always available to talk more about that if we have more time. So I just wanted to share, it's not a lot of time today. I wanted to share just a few things with you that I felt might be impactful, and then take this opportunity, maybe ask a few questions or answer a few questions. Travis, David?
Awesome, man. Mike, thanks so much, brother. That was, as always, man, amazing words of wisdom. I want to dive right into some of the stuff that's coming in, kid, because we promised people we're going to post this live, so we've actually figured out a cool new feature here. So I'm going to show the first question that came through. The random is not showing his name, but I think on the screen here, how do you resolve that the chiefs that lose themselves and put chief images on everything they own and also hides in the chief's mess? Because I think we all know that, we see that sometimes. So, and if we turn a blind eye to it, we just kind of condone it. So how do you recommend you handle that?
Mm-hmm. Look, we have to be our own worst critics. Whether it doesn't matter what pay grade you are, it doesn't matter what organization you're in. As the executive director of the Navy League, we talk about that within our own organization. It's self-accountability, right? Independence and accountability, right? Be accountable for yourself, right? And then hold your organization accountable as well. And look, I'm always sticking my foot in my mouth, David, because I know that I'm a bit non-traditional in my approach. And you know that from my time as the MCPON and some of the things that I focused on and worked on and some of the controversy that created. But you know what? I don't care, because I believe that there's only one way to do things. There's only one way to have a conversation, and that's the right way, right? And I will tell you that I've never been and still not a fan of all those things that create this self-inflated image of ourselves, right? This bravado, you call it, right? Look, someone will probably, send me a nasty gram on Facebook when this is all over, right? But I just felt like the chief petty officer should be and Dave, I've said this, quiet, humble servant, right? Let your words speak through your actions. Don't think less of yourself, but think more of others. Remember, it's not your sailors that serve you, it's you that serve your sailors, right? And when you start doing these things, right, when you start bringing this attention to yourself, the self-inflated ego, right, it creates bravado, right? And bravado the definition is a self-inflated understanding of who you are or who you want to be, right? So look, there's no stickers on my car, right? I never was one to run around and talk, chief this and chief that, and because it doesn't do any of us any good, right? And look, here's the secret. Let me just share this with our sailors. So I've been privileged to work with some of the most senior flag and general officers of our nation, right? I've had opportunities to be at the White House, right? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be on Capitol Hill presenting an award to a congressman. Look, I say those things because not to be bragatory, right? But to say that I've been blessed and given opportunities that I never thought I would have. And many of you will have those same opportunities, right? And when I talk to them behind closed doors and we start talking about the Chiefs mess, and these are the people that lead our nation and lead our military. Very quietly, they will whisper in my ear and say, they're not crazy about that either. Like they don't say anything publicly, and they don't want to create any consternation or hate and discontent. So they just kind of, if that's what the Chiefs want to do, then let the Chiefs do that, right? But they don't see any value in it. Right? They don't see any value in it at all. Now let's just think about that for a second. Think about our Navy, our Navy SEALs, right? For decades and decades and decades, they were just the quiet warriors, right? And I believe the vast majority of them still are. But and I've got some great friends that are with the SEAL community, and some of them, one of them was a retired Force Master Chief from the SEAL community, and others. And there was a few folks that started to get outside of that kind of quiet warrior mentality and started doing things to bring attention to their community, right? And they felt like that attention to their community was undermining who they are supposed to be and who they need to be. And almost all of them, I mean 99.9% of them said stop, right? Because this is not who we are. And then those few that were doing those things, they had to handle that within their own organization. They had to stamp that out, right? Look, it's very similar with our organization, with the Chief Petty Officers Mess, or even with the United States Navy. It's okay to be proud, but don't be prideful. Don't be bragatory, right? If you just do your job and you do it well, if you're the best in the world in your business, believe me, people will know that and they will respect that. But people don't like people who run around and brag and have a self-inflated sense of them, right? It doesn't work well, right? And I had this conversation we're having now, I had with thousands of Chief Petty Officers, hundreds of Chiefs messes around the world, right? And not all of them appreciated the conversation. I said, look, actions speak louder than words. If you're a great Chief Petty Officer and you have a great Chiefs mess, just do your job. And your sailors will recognize that, not by what you say, but by what you do.
As amen, man. All right. Well, we're running out of time now, Mike. We want to try to keep this on track. There's going to be a couple of more questions, Mike. If you want to jump in on that and answer these things live, I really appreciate it. And because your insight's always valuable, man. I mean, I feel blessed just to know you and have some of the background. As you know, we talked before. We've spilt blood back there in the same mud, and I appreciate everything you do, man. So
no, thank you. And just in closing, I wanted to thank all our sailors out there for raising their right hand and swearing the oath to our Constitution, for serving their country. There's so many other things that they could be doing. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and they've chosen to serve their country. I'm proud to be not prideful, proud to be associated with them, right? I'm a sailor and will be one till my dying day, right? And if there's anything that I can do to support this organization, as all of you support those sailors around the world, just say the word. So keep up the good work. You're doing your country right. You're doing your families right, and you should feel good about who you are.
Mike, I appreciate those words, Mike, and would love to keep you on longer. But like Travis said, our time is drawing nigh.
You got a schedule.
Got a schedule, brother. But hey, seriously though, feel free to. William asked a question in chat. Maybe you can go ahead and throw an answer in there. Thank you for your continued support, and I look forward to seeing you. I'll talking to you soon. I won't see you anytime soon since we're 3,000 miles apart. But I'll give you a call next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, hey, everyone. So as we wait for, now that Travis can't mess with it. There you are. So Travis, we may have to move on.
I know.
But to our next speakers, if you want to reach out. But while we're waiting, listen, a couple things I want to comment. First, I've had a number of people text and email me, say, hey, are we doing 2020 hats and shirts? And the answer is no. We did the coin. And the reason being, let's face it, I didn't know how many we would sell. And hats and shirts aren't something that you could have a huge inventory of and then expect people to buy them. As a matter of fact, I have a 2020 hat or 2019 hat, a large shirt, and a coin. And I also have medium. So first person to send a text, we will mail it out. I also want to give a shout out to, I hear that there's, I think, no, they're not all retired speakers. They're Cisco. We have 2 active duty coming up towards the end. I also want to give a shout out to the Surface Division 11 CPO mess. Man, you guys are all together, like 25 of you. Thank you for being there, tuning in. And if somebody from the mess can, no, there's no extra larges. If somebody from the mess could send me a good mailing address, Elf, we'd like to send you guys an autographed copy of the Chief Petty Officer Guide signed by Paul Kingsbury. So just text me your address or email it and we'll get it. So Travis, come on back with me. Oh, and Travis is going to introduce our next speaker, who's now in the green room. Travis, take it away.
All right. So without further ado, we, of course, I get to introduce this lovely young lady because we go way back. And so it's an absolute honor for me to introduce her. So without further ado, I'm going to throw this young lady online. Miss Rosa Wilson's in the house.
Travis, come on back with me.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm great, Rosa. You might want to turn off your, I think you're listening to it on your Facebook account there. So going to get a little feedback there. But while she's doing that, Rosa, of course, I'm going to throw some, a little background on you because I know you a little bit more. I've known her for half of my career in the Navy. So she was my command master chief in Sigonella. And then she was instrumental in me actually getting selected to command senior chief. So my personal thanks goes out to her. She's a true mentor of mine. But besides that, I think she hardly even needs an introduction because as you can see all the comments blowing up on Facebook, Rosa, you're just an amazing human being, an amazing leader. Ended her naval career at the ESG-3 and then still goes on to lead now as with the Navy Relief. And I just can't thank you enough for everything you do. And man, welcome.
First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you guys for putting this together. Just to have this, because this is normally what we do in person, but we can still remain intact and still do things. Just a different option and all.
Hey, Rosa, I'm going to interrupt you. You can thank us, but you're part of the board. and although this isn't you're not here because you're part of the board, asked to speak. But listen, you contributed to help put this on. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
But thank everybody, Diane and her CPO Pride Day team and committee for doing this, giving everybody an opportunity to have something on this day. Again, thank everybody. And my topic today is about emotional intelligence. How many of you have heard the term mission first, sailors always? I know I have during my time active duty, and I always kind of wonder what that means and what was my take of that definition. So bottom line up front, mission first, sailors always, we got to get the job done. So having said that, we got to get the job done. The only way we can get the job done is through the sailors, right? And the only way you're going to get the sailors to do the job is to make sure that everything is well, meaning that they're mentally, physically capable and ready to go at work and at home. So one of the things about emotional intelligence for a leader, we talk about is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotion in positive ways to release stress, communicate effectively, and emphasize with others and overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. So I look at myself and I sit back and I think about this and it's like, wow, that's pretty good. That's a great definition for a leader to have in their toolbox and have that skill set. We all have it. But how am I going to do that? Manage my emotions, release stress. I'm going to do that when I'm working 24/7. And if I'm not doing what my ministry job is, I'm doing the welfare and the concerns of others. So how can I do that? Well, I have to do a self-awareness and assessment of myself. And so I would task the chiefs to do that. Hey, or the first classes, deal with self-awareness or assessment. And what does that mean? Look at myself, okay? And I'll give you a good example of that. When I was on the USS John C. Captain Buss was the CO at the time. He long retired as an admiral. And they used to, when we had all hand calls and stuff, he would notice that I would always be on the side. I never get inside the group or anything. I always stood aside. I didn't stand with the chief mess, didn't stand with the junior sailors, didn't stand with the wardroom. I would just stand aside. So he noticed it. I didn't think he did, it mattered, but he came out to me one day and he said, hey, CMC, I noticed every time we do a gathering something, you're always standing by yourself. And he said, why is that? You don't feel that you're part of the team? And I said, no, so that's just the opposite. I feel like I'm part of the team. One, I stand off so I can hear what the speaker is saying, because if someone is standing next to me, most likely we're going to talk. So when I found that route. But the other, the most important reason was to observe others, to see how others were reacting to what was being said to them. And that's what they mean by emotional intelligence. Being able to observe and see what's going on. If one day your sailor is actually just, nonstop, boom, boom, boom. And then 2 days later, you can't get the sailor to do anything, but you don't notice it. But you should. If you know your sailors, you should be able to know why the sailors is not performing today, or even yourself. Some signs of low emotional intelligence is not listening. We all probably guilty of that, because if someone asks you a question or someone is telling you something, you already respond to that person, when sometimes they just want you to listen. And then observe them, how they're telling you the story or sharing the story. The other is blaming others. Hey, CMC, you unapproachable. What do you mean I'm unapproachable? That's just me. Maybe it's you. Maybe you feel that way. I can't control how you feel. And then the other is the emotional outburst when something go wrong. What do we say? Holy, those are things that we lose control of, or we don't want to accept and take a step back and look at ourselves. And I'm gonna give you a quick quote here, because I love quotes. If you are tuned out of your own emotion, you will be poor at reading them in other people. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you're not looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I probably could have done that better, or I could have said that differently, or maybe I should have asked the question when I was doing that. And why did I react that way? Was it that bad? Was it the end of the world to respond that way? No. How could I have controlled myself better? Or how could I manage that? Well, we all handle stress differently, and we have to figure out different ways how to relieve our stress and not let it come out as an angry emotion. Sorry about that. Which sometimes happens. But getting proper exercise, eating properly, talking to a mentor, or talking to a counselor, if that's what you choose to do. Understanding yourself, better understanding yourself. I think Mr. Miles mentioned earlier, and also Mick Pond Stephen, you have to be you, but you have to know you and you understand you and know when to make some adjustment, when to feel your temperature is rising, you're about to lose control here. Figure out how to stop and manage that. And when they say mission first and sales always, people are relying on you. The job has to be done. That is a true statement. But it doesn't mean that we don't care what's going on in your life. We want to know what's going on. We want to observe your behavior and make sure that all is well. We have too many things that's going on in the world, and some people deal with it differently. It's how you've been raised. It could be a culture thing on how you handle conflict. But I know as a leader, our job is to diffuse the conflict, not add on to it. And as a leader, we have to understand sometimes too, doing things differently, or doing something without reading the instruction, like putting a part together. When you get the box, you look at the picture, you don't read the instruction. That happens. That happens to me. And then I had tools left over, and I can't figure out where they go now. But and realize later they're extra, right? So it happens. But you want to motivate yourself, and you want to motivate the people around you. If you're motivated and you're managing your emotion, and notice I say I'm not saying not having emotion, managing your emotion. Ella will observe that, and it may come up to you or ask, hey, how are you doing that? How are you being able to interact? Social skill, I think one of the earlier speakers talk about social skills, social interacting. That's all part of the emotion intelligence. I mean, being able to communicate effectively and empathize with others, understand the different culture, understand the person not doing things the way that you would do it. And I had a hard time with that because I would consider myself as a good example, because I would think that, hey, I took a while to figure that out, but I never quit. So when I had someone else come up to me and say, well, I can't do it, immediately I could feel inside myself that, what do you mean you can't do it? I mean, maybe you're not working hard at it. Why do you give up so easily? When those are not things I said out loud, but those are things that's in my mind. But I'm managing those to not come out of my mouth to the person that's talking to me. So I have to stop and regroup and think, okay, ask the question on why you're not, what's the problem, what's going on, why you're having a difficult time doing this or completing this task, or which way can we do this to make it easier and comfortable for you to make the mission happen. So all of those things, we just have to keep in mind that we all, as a leader and even as a person, we have to make sure and be true to ourselves, understand ourselves. And being in a military structure, it comes with promotion. It comes with advancement. And no matter how soon or how quickly you advance, your maturity may not catch up with that advancement. However, knowing that, then you have to be open-minded, do the assessment, communicate, listen, most importantly, and understand what you're getting into, what's about to happen here. And make sure that you're mentally and better and physically prepared for it. Some of the benefits of having that emotional intelligence comes with the performance will increase. You as a leader feel better each day. This goes for your COX or anybody, department head that's in a leadership role, because you're not stressing out. No one say that you're not supposed to, but know how to manage it and control it, and know what to do, how to deconflict any of those feelings or emotion, to stop any outbursts or making anybody feel bad. I think we all can learn from that, and we all can look at that life that way. I love the part about, if you're not in tune with your own emotion, how can you pick up on reading other people? When I used to do quarters at ESG3, I used to rotate the person that was going to do quarters, morning quarters. And the day before, I would sit down with that person and just talk to them, hey, get this. Today you're doing what the chief would do, the first class would do, or the CMC would do, or maybe even the DIVO. Go around and talk to the people that you need to talk to that direct the policy and giving us the plan what to do next week. And so when you get before people, you find out how everybody's doing, first of all. Find out what's their weekend plan, make sure and look at everybody when you're saying that, because you want to observe the one that doesn't say anything, or the one that say, oh, I'm not going to do anything. And hear that how many times, I'm not going to do anything. You might want to just pull that person aside and ask them what's going on, and offer them some resources out there, some fun event to go to, safe, of course, and help them, let them open up to them so they can open up to you to better understand them, what's going on. They could be your best workers, and normally they are, and they won't share anything personally about it, and you won't notice them because they continue to work well and they don't miss a beat. We talked about blind spots a little bit earlier. Those are the one that you have to be mindful of. And then, of course, your own self, be in tune with yourself. If someone's saying you're aggressive, you're unapproachable, think about it. Don't respond to them quickly. Just think about it. You know, what do you mean by that? Ask the person, what do you mean by that? Or know your own person. As I use myself as an example, I said the CEO came up to me and asked, I noticed you stand aside. And I didn't think nothing big of it. I just took a stand. I would stand here and would look around always. I didn't know it was a big deal, but he was concerned about that because he thought that I didn't feel part of the team. But at the same, he was using one of the things about emotional intelligence. He's being observant. He want to know if everything is okay, and that's what you have to do. I'll close because I know I don't want to take up any more time than I have to. Empathy is another one. You know, if someone tell you they have a death in the family or they lost a family member, a friend, or even a pet that they was very close to, you don't say, well, get over it. You know, you can't, hold on forever. You know, you have to ask them why the emotional drain. You know, how can we help you day by day come to grips with this? You know, and learn how to. Some people want closure. Sometimes it's not good to have closure. Sometimes it's just okay to move on, move forward, not forget, but move forward, and then figure out and focus on the positive thing of that loss and not the loss itself. And before you know it, you probably find another friend or another mentor or peer that fill that hole that you feel that you have or you do have that you didn't think could ever get filled again because that one person did it for you. I'll close one more time, and I always have a closure. Understand the role as a leader that you play. And I think Make Stephen covered that a little bit by our job is to influence people. And that's either verbal or physical or just not doing anything. Our presence sometimes can do that. But our present has to be a presence of knowing when to talk, knowing when to listen, knowing when to emphasize, and being aware of our own actions and others around us. And you can do that just very quietly. You don't need to be the loud one. It's just say, hey, I noticed this and that. As I told the junior sailor at quarters, you don't have to call them out right there at quarters. Pull them aside afterward and talk to them. So with that, that is my end. If you have any questions for me.
Awesome. I always love hearing you. I always like sitting there all quiet and stuff, trying to listen. Thank you so much for your time, Rosa. And it's an absolute honor to serve alongside you with this great organization. So for the sake of time, of course, leave it to you to have everybody blowing up the chat room for questions. So in the sake of time, I'm going to ask one question live, and then I'm going to let you go dive deep in the comments and answer directly. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So the question that we're going to ask online, so the very first one is the only way to be safe is serving in leadership positions all over the world. How did you find the strength for the challenges that you faced?
The foundation of anything I do, even my life, is my faith. You know, I've read lots of books, but if I didn't read the Bible and understand it, the other books would be useless to me. So that foundation came from my faith and my upbringing from my home that I never forgot about. I use that as the baseline in everything I did. And it's hard, but I embrace the challenge because it helped me mature and helped me grow, not just for me, but others. So that's my foundation was my faith.
That's awesome, Rosa. Well, look, again, thank you so much for your time today. And man, as always, we just love hearing from you. So don't worry. This won't be the last time we throw you on the spot in front of everybody.
Rosa, thanks for taking time. You know, I know that you have a very important job at NMCRS. And thanks for what you're doing and taking a little bit of the PTO time to join us here and on the Unmasked Mondays and stuff. And like I think it's great. Like Travis said, you sometimes get the most questions, the most comments. It's fantastic. And thanks. And you're a very authentic and transparent person. I think that's so invaluable as a leader. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I love everybody and be blessed. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosa. All right, guys. Well, Dave, I think you're up for the next awesome speaker. We're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to go into our active duty.
Active duty. That's right. Yeah. So, listen, before we do that, a couple more shout outs. First, at least one more. 1st Medical Battalion. They're watching at a CPO mess, a large group gathering, socially distanced. They sent me some photos to prove it. So thanks for that. When we're all done, I'll throw those photos out on our Facebook page so people can see, as well as the Directorate Branch Clinic at Naval Base San Diego. They're also watching together as a Chief Petty Officer's mess. So just like the couple before you, somebody in your mess, you just texted Directorate Branch Clinic, Navy Medical Readiness and Training Unit, both of them, and which is the new name for the Navy Medical Center Balboa. How about that? So listen, just like the previous 2 commands, you guys send me your information, and the Enlisted Leadership Foundation will proudly and happily send you Paul Kingsbury's book for your CPO mess library. And before we introduce Kareem, listen, one more 2019 kit. So somebody, first person send me a text, we'll get that 2019 kit. And the second person in that text stream, you're going to get the Chief Petty Officer Guide. All right. And the third person, I'll send you the Miles McPherson, the third option. So there you go. So Travis, if you could bring Kareem, and man, Kareem, it's great to see you. Thank you so much. For those that haven't met this man, this is Command Master Kareem Cole, and I met Kareem first around 2006, back in the pre-com days. I was pre-com in the Macon Island, and I think you were Green Bay, or did you start in New Orleans? Green Bay. So, and he's a native of Freetown, Sierra Leone, and you enlisted in the Navy December 1990. People may not realize, we have over 4 dozen countries represented in our armed services. It's pretty amazing. And I thought about that when Miles was talking, just the diversity, just of our military. So, you're the Region Command Master Chief of Naval Forces Korea. You wore a couple hats over there. And you were the Navy Education Training Command Force Master Chief. You were also the Blue Angels Command Master Chief at one time.
I thought you weren't going to read
bio. And now serving as the Command Master Chief. Yeah, well, Naval Academy. Listen, shipmate, that's the bio, okay? You just see a couple of highlights, okay? I didn't really read the bio. Folks can go to the mess. But listen, Kareem, thanks for joining us today. And I don't want to take up much of your precious time. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Dave. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think it's just a little delay. That's all.
Okay. All right. Well,
you're good.
Okay. Hey, thanks for the opportunity, to be part of this group. So since I'm not on the board, let me say, I'll continue where Rosa, started, and thank everybody that put this together. I had the opportunity last year, to actually come up to San Diego, and do this live, with April Beldo, and I had a great day, enjoyed the company down there. So now, the topic is interesting, and it's timely, leadership in action. When I think about that right now, I think about leading through adversity, getting things done in spite of everything that we're going through. The challenges that we have today, with COVID and all that. And I'm going to talk more about training, empowerment, and mentorship. From coming from NETC, even, to this job, I'm observing the same, adversity and challenges. When I was watching the video earlier, Chief Johnson talked about the young sailor, that helped fight the fire on BHR. Those sailors rely on their training, and that's what's going to get us through, every evolution that we're faced with. Now, granted, we train basically train sailors out of boot camp. But the things that they've been doing out there with, Dave Trifle and his team, with Warrior Toughness, these sailors are not what I remember when I went to boot camp. They are getting a lot more training, in, emotional, physical, mental, firefighting, seamanship, navigation, and all that stuff now coming out of boot camp. So they're a lot better trained than when I went through, 30 years ago. So I think it's important. Here, the academy, right now, our mission, even though it's a world-class institution, higher education, our mission is to develop officers with character, to send them to the fleet, to lead sailors and Marines. Now, you could do education all day long online, but you can't build leadership and character online. That's the reason why the superintendent made the decision to bring the brigade back. Now, the brigade is here, but the challenge is still, with us. So that takes me to empowerment. What we've done is allow the midshipmen to lead midshipmen. So today, as I sit here, today is going to be the first day that we actually allow them to leave the yard on liberty. We're taking the seniors and send them out, about 100 of them, to actually go be, if you will, the shore patrol. They are the only ones that will be out, today. And then starting Saturday, we'll start sending the brigade out, and then we'll bring them back in based on their rank and their standing in the class, just like we will in the fleet. Okay, so relying on the training, empowering, the leaders, and holding them accountable, when they don't do what they're supposed to do. I tell you, it's been outstanding, being in the training room, from NETSI, to here. I've learned a lot, and I watch these young men and women grow every single day. And something that most of you don't know is my son is now a plebe, right here. So I watch second class, third class, and seniors developing my child. And that's amazing, to see. So I would ask everybody, who's watching, whether you're second class, you're, third class, your second class, your first class, ready for chief. Remember, you're a leader in your own right. Like McPon said, we're not looking for you to lose yourself when you become chief. But what I am looking for, what I'm challenging you to do, is to continue to lead all through each rank. Don't forget what you learn as a first class when you become a chief. Okay, don't forget what you need to do when you become chief. Continue to stay hungry, but be engaged. You have to be engaged. You cannot be that chief, who they see once a year, because we have them out there. That's not what we need. We need all hands on deck, on the deck plate, to make a difference, to train our relief, to continue to learn, as we move on. And I'll tell you, even at this level, I still rely on my mentor. Mick Von Hertz always tell me that, when you go into a new job, reach out to the folks who used to have that job before. When I was in NETSI, I did the same thing. First my ship Pratt, I would talk to him. Before John Port, passed away, I would talk to him. April Beldo was in the job, I will talk to her. Here I do the same thing. I'm fortunate enough that McPon Smith is two CMC, removed from this job. And he still loves the yard. So I can reach out to him at any time. He'll be on the yard, every chance he gets. And Master Kirby is just a phone call away. So use those relationships that you build. Keep them sustained. Keep them alive. Because you never know, how powerful they are. Keep yourself well developed. I am a student. I've always, believe in, staying on top of things, being up to date. Read. The book I'm reading now is, Fail Fast or Win Big by Bernard Shorter. Failure is inevitable. We will run into failure. But the key to leadership is what you do after you fail. Do you roll over and quit, or do you pick yourself up and learn from that failure and correct yourself, recalibrate, and move on. And that's what's key, and that's what's going to get us where we need to go. All right, Dave, I'll stop talking, and I'll take whatever question you got.
Hey, that was quick.
Well, I can't see anybody, so it's hard to.
Well, I know. Yeah, you need that two-way conversation. There's Travis coming back in to join us.
Everybody just disappeared, so like I'm talking to a screen,
Well, Kareem,
we do that. That's because you're active duty. We leave it that we wanted to see how the active duty would respond. That's what we call leadership in action. How you overcome a leadership challenge.
I did, but it wasn't fun if I'm just talking to a screen. I like to talk to the folks, face to face.
So we got some questions, Travis.
Okay.
All right. So again, Kareem, first off, thanks, man. Always, just the diversity of leaders that we have across our nation. Just thanks for the time that you've had here. So we want to throw, as I said, we're kind of catching up a little bit here. So one of them from Susan Bradley says, you mentioned midshipmen leading the force. Yes, together, Chief Mess, the wardroom connection is the key. I thought that was just an important comment to put out there. Right. So let's
let me, if I could comment on that. And Kareem, when I made chief back in 1996, they used to say, I can still remember the number one job of the chief is to train your junior officers.
Absolutely.
And then and that's something I tried to carry on through all the different initiations or transition, induction, CPO 365 and initiation. So real quick, and we actually get asked, do we have a program for first year chiefs? So we have some first year chiefs listening. They don't know that they're first year yet, but they will be. So when it comes to training a junior officer, what does that mean?
Okay. So for me, I don't know whether it's a lieutenant now or lieutenant commander, Macaulay, it was on the video. He was one of my JLs, so we would literally just sit around, and talk about, the mission, talk about, the plan for that, command. It does not have to be a formal training. It's a matter of, mentoring, developing, strict communication, between one another. That's what's going, it's needed, to develop your junior officer. I'll tell you though, Dave, if you bring those folks into the mix, into the conversation, whatever you're doing, that's training opportunity right there. They don't have to sit in the classroom. It's just that, frank conversation, and if I'm doing something, I have a mission, I've been tasked, by the CEO or whoever to do something. You pull your JO in that, and let them, talk you through or talk through with you and explain to them what you're doing. They're going to learn from that. That's how I do it. Everything I do is about relationship. For me, my entire leadership has been about relationship. And I do it with my kids. I do it with my sailors, and I do the same thing with my officers. And I tell you, one of the advantages for me, I've served, 5 flag officers now. That the flag aide, has always been that one person that I wish out and pull into my circle. Because most of them are, brand new, people coming from the fleet, and then they're going to be a department head when they leave. So I always make it a point to bring those individuals into my mix and have that conversation with them.
That's awesome. I got to tell you, coming from someone who built a business on the other side, that same model of putting relationships first is actually instrumental even on the other side in business. I've taken the exact same model you just said for building relationships in the mess and in the Navy, very easily translated to the civilian world as well. So just point for in there.
I tell you though, Dave right there, before I went to Korea, I sat down with him, and he gave me one of those frank conversations because I went into the flag mess earlier than I probably should have been, and he was one of the few people that told me that, and I said, okay, so now I know I've got to work harder, to meet the demand and the expectation that I was getting, so those conversations are important, but you have to find a mentor that would actually tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You know, and I appreciate that. You know, Dave.
Absolutely. Well, Kareem, I'm gonna put one more question up here because I thought it was kind of relevant to what you do, and I think it's really good here. Jess says COVID's drastically changed how we are as a nation, as a warfighting machine to operate. At the Naval Academy, how are you basically effectively changing that to help with our naval officers, and how can the enlisted leaders support? Jess, I thought that was a great question because that's something we always forget to ask. We always say, what can we do? What can help us? What can we do to help that?
Yeah, so great question. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we have not been able to execute, all our sea trial, and send the midshipmen out, to the fleet. We will do that, So when you get them, remember, just like in boot camp, they basically train, midshipmen. Take them under your wing, get them developed, show them the ropes on the platform that they're coming to. That's how you can help them. Now here, we're doing, everybody's in the yard. We're doing everything we need to do to get them developed. We're doing everything we can to get them trained, to be the best, ensign and second lieutenant when they get to you. Every single company has a senior enlisted. The brigade is broken into 30 companies. And each one of the companies have a senior enlisted because we want to inject that, senior enlisted junior officer relationship, in them early on. So when they get to the fleet, that's not the first time, they get to see that.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thanks again for your time. Again, out of respect, try to keep us on pace, respect everybody's time. I'd ask Kareem, jump on Facebook and YouTube, and if you see any questions in there that are directed to you, feel free to go direct and answer them. We're getting some amazing questions that I'm seeing pop up. So again, Master Chief, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time, buddy.
Hey, Kareem, even if they're addressed to Rosa or Mike, Miles, whoever, just chime in. Right? Seriously, it's they're not targeted questions. Any of you guys could answer them.
I just poured into Beldo. So.
Yeah, get April involved. Get Hurt involved. Hey, I'll forward them to Greg Pratt. I know we'll bring Brett back into the fold, man. So hey, thank you, Kareem.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, all man, right. Travis, this is
man. You have swag before we go into our book.
Yeah, I do have a swag, and I also, real quick, I want to finish out this list of shout outs. Okay. I started going through it, and I meant to return to it earlier. But I don't want to wait to the very last thing. Even though oftentimes we do things in the background, people volunteer not to be recognized. They volunteer because it's in their spirit, it's in their heart. It's part of giving back. It's part of building relationships. But we would not be able to function as effectively as we do as the Enlisted Leadership Foundation if not for so many people that volunteer, that want to be part of just to volunteer. So also we had Jorge Gallegos and Esther Ocampo, Ryan Achenhausen. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry. Candy Culp, Maria Lozano, Latoya Thomas, Trong Nguyen, and Joe Valiano. Some of these names, like Joe, for example, he's been volunteering for a number of years. He's our retired representative. But if you think about it, this is not a large group. It's an exhaustive list, but not a large list. There's about 14 names here. Okay. And it's these 14 people that if this was the event at Roku Park, where 3,000 of us, it'd be these 14 people putting it together, we do some additional support as it gets closer, but this is the core. So guys, publicly, on behalf of the Enlisted Leadership Foundation Board of Directors, I do want to thank you for stepping up, helping out. And even though it may not feel like your contribution was exhaustive as it could have been in a real world environment instead of a COVID world environment, you should see the amount of texts that I've been receiving, thanking from viewers, just thanking you all for putting this on. Travis and I are moderating, and our speakers are encouraging and great, but it's really you guys that put this together. So thank you for them. Let's give away just a coin, the 2019 coin. The caller number one, and why not caller number 2? We'll give one more CPO guide. Okay.
Oh, we're getting generous in your young age there, David.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
So
man.
It's you. Why don't you bring in our final and man, our keynote, if you will. Everybody leading up. Not that there's any pressure, and not that Chris has to follow some big feet. So
yeah. So yeah, without further ado, I get the honor of putting this guy out there. So again, I of course picked the ones that I've actually worked with in the past. Chris and I go back, and again, he was a mentor for me. Anybody, let me tell you, everybody, no matter what pay grade you are, how high you've made it in the military, you always need to have somebody to look to. And when I first became a commanding senior chief, we all know when you first put on a new role, you don't know what the hell you're doing. I can't tell you how many times I crawled into Chris's office and was trying on his coat sleeves, trying to get. So here it is. This guy he's never acted like a reservist, if you will. He's always been been leading from the front. And man, you just skyrocketed all the way to the top to be our force master before the reserve force. But he also did the active duty component. He's done it all. Without further ado, Chris Coates, man, thanks, brother, for coming and joining us, man.
Hey, thanks, Travis. Let's do a sound check real quick. Give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, great.
Good.
Excellent. Well, so if those of you who may not know me, I want to go ahead and set some foundation. CPO Pride Day is in my DNA. I was the chairman of CPO Pride Day in, 2009 and 2010. And I took it from a senior chief, Rivera, who introduced the first cadence competition. And that moment inspired me to see all that display during that cadence competition of Chiefs Pride, and to watch those chief selectees and Chiefs Mess come together to produce something that I thought was magical. And so I couldn't do it once. I had to do it twice.
Dude, always been a mentor for trying to lead from the front with that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So with that, I am super proud of what the Enlisted Leadership Development Foundation is doing. I hope that when I retire, I get an opportunity to come back into this fold. I've been having the opportunity to travel around the Navy and watch CPO Pride Days everywhere from Djibouti to Norfolk. I spoke in Norfolk last year at a phenomenal CPO Pride Day. So amongst the scope of what you offer our enlisted leader, from Foundry, just everything that you're doing in that San Diego area, I'm so proud that you're going global. I know this wants to be the first and last, but I do think this is what I would say could be a crown jewel to the future of what you're doing. If you could bring Miles McPherson, Mick Pond Stevens, Rosa, and Kareem together, and amongst all of our other leaders, I think you got a winning formula. So don't look to drop this, in my opinion. Look to make this a part of that spectrum as well.
Listen,
thank you for that,
We've
Chris.
adapted and we've recognized the value of this, and I can assure you, once we do come out of this world, we're going to bring back CPO Pride Day into the fullest, like we did. But make no mistake, we're going to be applying a lot of our lessons learned on how we can reach this global audience and just really make it an amazing thing. So again, thanks for all your support, Chris.
Absolutely. Hey, so I know we're a little bit buffered on time, but I'll go ahead and commence. I think I got about 15 minutes of worth of material for everybody, maybe a little bit shorter, if that's okay. So hello, everybody. I'm actually coming to you from Tyler, Texas. Tyler is in East Texas. I'm currently on leave. I'm visiting my wife's in-laws, as well as my daughter, who has become a teacher in this COVID environment in Tyler, Texas. It's where I met my wife. So to come on leave to here has been a blessing and a good source of rejuvenation for me. And that's a key point about being a chief, is to make sure that you get that rejuvenation and that leave opportunity. Hey, there's a couple of notable things that I think as chief petty officers we have to be very in tune to. The number one is that we're on the eve of 9/11. And as we all know, in 2001, that put our nation into crisis mode. And so during that time and the time afterwards, leadership was in all forms and fashion was on display. And so we are a part of that fabric. and I want to make sure we don't ever look away at that. We as Chief Petty Officers, during that time of national crisis, we got back, we did the things we need to do to make sure our future chiefs were empowered, and we never stopped. We never took a knee. We trained our chiefs, and here we are in COVID, we're doing the exact same thing. We are finding our way to adapt and overcome, which is a valuable attribute of a Chief Petty Officer, as well as a collective Chief Petty Officers mess. We're also on the precipice of commissioning of the USS Dilbert Black. And I couldn't be more proud to be anywhere in our Navy with that. MCPON Black has a special meaning for all of us as Chief Petty Officers. And so I wanted to make sure that we pay a couple moments to that in our Chief's Mess, because just like the USS Chief, we have something to look forward to, a beacon of leadership in MCPON Black, and to go through CPO Pride Day without mentioning our MCPONs for their leadership of action, to me would be a misstep. And then lastly, the next milestone that we have is, quite frankly, the birth of our nation and the birth of our Navy is 244 years old. Our Navy is a phenomenal, world's finest Navy. And in my position as a Force Mass Chief, if you don't know, I have the privilege of working in the Pentagon. I get to see a lot of the other services celebrate, as well as our own service celebrate. But I would tell you, if you look in the history of time, our Navy and Army are the foundational bedrock of how we protect our country. And so the fact that we're 244 years old, as well as with our Marine Corps, who's also 244 years old, and that bringing that naval power, securing the seas, it's such a celebration. So what I decided to do is, first of all, to acknowledge the previous speakers. Miles McPherson, I am in such an awe. I learned a lot about. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm one of those people who would say, I don't necessarily see color. I don't lead with that, but I do my best to make sure that I don't make color or a part of it. But I learned so much from you today, and I hope everybody in the Chief's Mess will go back and listen and take notes to Mr. McPherson. MCPON Stevens, we work not that far away from each other, and what he does and that institution that supports our Navy and our Navy Reserve is phenomenal, and I thank you for your continued service. Rosa is a mentor of mine. I don't know if we ever developed into a mentor-protege relationship, but I count her in my list of proteges. And then I have the privilege of serving with Kareem. Kareem is just one smart, phenomenal Navy leader. And every time I walk away with a conversation of Kareem, I've been blessed. I just learned so much about our Navy. I learn about what we do to support our sailors, and Kareem has been on the leading edge of that. Among the other leaders that we have in our Navy, I know, unfortunately, they cannot all be here, but hopefully I can represent them fairly today. So what I decided to do is give you some really brief, I would call them pearls, and something from the past for me, something in the now that I'm currently learning, and something I think for the future. So small C story here. As a couple of days of Force Mass Chief, I was in front of Navy Cargo Handling Battalion 10. And this is what I tell you from a Chief Petty Officer. This is from the past. And a phenomenal sailor, asked me a question in all hands call. It's actually the Admiral has all hands call, but she said, Mass Chief, I would like to know what you're reading now. And without a hesitation, without a beat, I said, well, I'm rereading OpNav instruction 3120.32. And I said, do you know what that instruction is? And she said, no, Mass Chief, I don't. And I said, does anybody here know what that is? And they said, no, Mass Chief, they don't. And I said, well, that's our SORM. And I know people will think that I'm crazy that I'm reading the SORM, but there's a lot of great books out there. But that book for me, that instruction for me, is one of the most important pieces of literature for a Chief Petty Officer, among many pieces. And so from the past, I would tell you that developing our future leaders, the SORM is a key, pivotal, seminal document, and that we should all have good command and control of that document. And that sounds kind of hokey because I've got a couple other books that I think are fantastic, but what I really enjoyed about that moment is that I didn't miss a beat. And even the CO and the Admiral said, man, there was no time lapse from the minute she asked that question until you answered it. And I later gave that sailor a coin for really giving me the opportunity to let everybody know in that audience that, hey, don't forget those documents when you're becoming a Chief Petty Officer. When you're going through your advancement, it's important to understand those things. Now for the now. So as has been alluded to in previous conversations, there's no doubt, our nation, our society, within a pandemic, leadership is needed. And one of those things that leaders do, and Rosa mentioned this, is that you have to be self-aware and self-accountable. You can't just say, I do things well. You have to listen to those around you. And I have the privilege of having a great chief and senior chief that provide me counsel in my day-to-day, Chief Randall and Senior Chief Perez. And they offer me some opportunity to be self-reflective and make sure that I am thinking about the things that will help us lead our sailors. So it's good to surround yourself with a good team. But what I want to tell you about right now is making sure that you do not take your bias for granted. There's a lot of biases. We have community bias, confirmation bias, everything from I would say color bias, just across the spectrum. And I urge you as Chief Petty Officers to get involved with that and to make sure that Sailor 360 has good dialogue with the Wardroom and Chiefs Mess about bias. I just gave that charge out to the Navy Reserve Force, and I hope to give it out to you too, is that don't ever take it for granted that you have this bias thing under control. Part of our journey in self-awareness is making sure that we continue to revisit that bias. And with that, that should increase your ability to listen, which is what CNO and MCPON has told us to do, listen, and then create empathy. And so I really want to make sure that for the now, that you hear me on that, and that you, as Chief Petty Officers and future Chief Petty Officers, and even any Navy leader, any leader, that you continue to re-explore bias, make sure that you understand where it is within your leadership style and your leadership mandate. And now for the future, and I like this because I could not have scripted it any better. Everything from my relationship with Travis Winfield, as well as with Rosa and a couple of other. So we do a good job, and this is for the future, now and for the future. We do a really good job talking about mentorship. I'd say we don't really do a good job about studying mentorship. And mentorship is not an exclusive Navy function. I first learned about mentorship when my dad was hired on from an agency, and he was assigned a mentor, and I was enthralled with it from that day forward. I didn't know what it was. I was probably 15, 16 at the time. And watching my father go through a protege-mentor relationship really opened my eyes. But what I want to tell you is many of you are proteges. If you are a mentor, you're probably a protege, and you should be a protege. But I want you to spend some time for the future of being a good protege. And that means you have to be engaged with your mentor. If you're waiting for your mentor to call you, and I'm blessed because a couple of my mentors have called me at a very key times in my life. And I'm willing to pay homage to him today. Force Master Chief Ronnie Wright, at a pivotal time, 2 pivotal times in my life, my mentor reached out to me, but I felt like I was never the best protege to him. As Chief Petty Officers, part of our leadership style is not just being good mentors to our sailors. It's also being good proteges to our mentors. And so I hope during this season that we have here that you realize that we cannot be complete as leaders, or even partially complete as leaders, without frequent engagement with our mentor. So I urge you to reach out for the future, re-engage in your mentor-protege relationship from a protege standpoint. Don't just go and say, hey, mentor, what do you got for me? Engage your mentor. This is what I'm seeing. Help me out, give your experience. And the reason why I say it couldn't be set up any purpose, if you look at what our retired Master Chiefs and retired Chief population is doing within this Enlisted Leadership Development Foundation, they are really paying it back. And I can't wait to be a part of this. So, before I wrap this up, I want to tell you from the past, don't forget the seminal documents. And I also recommend the CPO Guide by Paul Kingsbury. It's also another phenomenal book. I think Paul did a great job of being succinct. I also have the CPO manual from McPon Hagen as well. Really good documents to go back and reflect upon. So from the past, in the now, make sure that you don't take for granted bias in any form. I tell you when I address the selection board, I talk about community bias because, as we know, ducks pick ducks, and we want to make sure that we put that community bias at the door. And for the future, be a good protege. So in this theme of leadership in action, as I started off, I talked about 9/11. I found it really awesome to hear from Chief McCauley, Chief Johnson, and Chief Sewell on the Bonhomme Richard, because I took away something that I thought was really important for our Chief Petty Officer mess and our future chiefs. And this you don't get to choose the place and time to be a leader when you're a Chief Petty Officer. You're a Chief Petty Officer 24 hours, 7 days a week. Therefore, you are a leader 24 hours, 7 days a week. As was said before, everyone is watching you and everyone is hoping to draw inspiration from you. It's not good enough to say that I'm the chief. You have to act the part. You have to be the part, whether in uniform or in not in uniform. And so that you don't get to choose the time and place. Our job is to be the most ready as chiefs when the command may be the least ready. And so that means we have to be ready to spring into action. We may have to be ready to give command and control to a team. But what Master Chief Cole said, Force Master Chief Cole said, I thought was very profound. The most important job you have to do is train those teams now in the event that you're not there. Because even if you're not there, you're still the chief. And those sailors will go, what would Chief do? They would do it in their mind, or they might even do it out loud. What would Chief do? And so that training, those drills, your presence and your participation in those drills, those lessons learned, those after action reports, there's what can we get better? What did we do well? All those briefings that you do where you are leading the division, they are super important to a Chief Petty Officer in a crisis. And on that note, the one thing I will tell you is we are not perfect. We are human beings just like everyone else. And so it's super important to recognize when you are overwhelmed, when you are tired. We will be asking more from you and we'll be demanding more from you. We know that as part of our creed. But the Chief's Mess is one thing of a bunch of other. We are a bunch of brothers and sisters. And it is not weakness to call upon each other at our time of need, in our time of crisis. And I urge you, as part of our brother and sisterhood and our fraternal order, that if you are feeling overwhelmed, that we lean on each other, right? That's what we do as a mess. And that's one of the most hallmark attributes of our Chief's Mess is that we lift each other up. The old saying was, we're only as strong as our weakest link. I don't necessarily disagree with that statement, but one of the most important things in our Chief's Mess is making sure our weakest links has our support. And so again, Travis and David, what a great opportunity! What a tremendous privilege to pass upon some of my experience as the Force Master Chief of the Navy Reserve. It's been a great ride in our Navy and the world's finest Navy. And so to have this opportunity and to be a part of CPO Pride Day, well, it just made my day. So thank you very much.
Dude, Chris, that was awesome, dude. I mean, you hit on some really good points that sometimes just aren't talked about publicly. I mean, I think, people are always saying, give me when it comes to expecting our mentors to step in. They're not realizing that it needs to be you, because a good mentor is there just to answer, right? Yeah. They don't necessarily need to be the one making the calls. So I think being forward leaning, if you have a mentor, just really go for it. And just great stuff, man.
Thank them. I mean, because mentorship is a voluntary experience. So, thank them. And for our chiefs who are mentors, engage those proteges. Be tuned in to when they need you the most. And that one call could be the most important call of their entire life.
I love that, man. I love that. All right, well, look, we're going to dive into some of the comments real quick, man, and questions. I'm looking here from Cisco says, how do you implement past events in today's situation with COVID? Because that's a true statement, right? I mean, we're kind of figuring this crap out as we go, right?
Well, I don't know if we are or not. I think like I said in the beginning, we always have the power to adapt. Our Chiefs mess does not let anything define us except for the fact that we are, deck plate leaders. So, if I think about that question is how do I implement past events today? Look, quarters is quarters, no matter where you have it, whether it's virtual, on the phone, or in person. Mm-hmm. And so, our Navy tells us to have quarters for muster, instruction, and inspection. Well, you just go have quarters. Our Navy tells us to make sure that we are engaged with our sailors. It doesn't matter if I call them on the telephone or I drop by them. I mean, deck plate leadership does not have to be confined to me looking at face to face. It's the most preferred, but calling upon your sailors. I mean, the Navy's provided us some tools that I think are useful, but they'll never take the place of hearing your sailor's voice. They'll never take the place of checking in and just having that coffee with that sailor on the. It doesn't have to be on the deck on the mess decks. It could be on the phone. Demanding their attention. That intrusiveness that we talked about. That's part of our leadership style. So the question is, how do you implement them? Intrusive leadership is intrusive leadership, and I know some people get a little buckled about the word intrusive, and that's okay. I'm kind of like McPawn Stevens, is that however you choose to call it, it's still the fact of who we are as chiefs. Is we know our sailors. Part of our journey into the Chiefs mess, our initiation cycle is those division officer notebooks. That's just not an exercise in futility. That's about knowing each one of your sailors' strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. What makes them up, what motivates them. And if we let COVID define how we lead, then we are in the wrong. Mm-hmm. We will lead through COVID. We will lead. COVID is an event. We are enduring. And so it's a great question. I applaud it. I think it's a great opportunity to talk about it, but our Chiefs mess will refuse to let COVID define how we lead. We will lead no matter what.
I love that. David, what do you got, my man?
I'm muted. No. So, a couple of people actually had privately questioned prior to this, have you seen an increase of any, so being in reserve forces, we saw how it started COVID, country closed down, people lost jobs and jobs started coming back. But, people were wondering, several people were wondering if you saw in the reserve forces an increase of people asking to go back to full-time active duty.
This was a question that's touched on. Manny Aponte asked that question.
Yeah. So our Navy Reserve Force, it's designed to deliver strategic depth to the active component. We have two missions: strategic depth and operational support. They're very hand in hand with each other. So to the question, we have a system in which we can display the jobs that are needed. It's called ZipServe. It's on the Navy Reserve home port, and so we have been flooding that with opportunities for sailors to come on. There's opportunities at RTC Great Lakes. There's opportunities at NPC. There's opportunities with the fleets. But we already have a system in place to make sure that our sailors know where to look for those opportunities. We also have opportunities with their mobilization commands, and we've flooded the market with some extra funds to support that. We want, and as always with my Chiefs mess in the Navy Reserve Force, they're tuned to where our sailors need that. But the greatest thing that we've offered is ability to support virtually. Our Navy Reserve Force was adaptive. And when it came out, the commander of the Navy Reserve Forces Command, as well as my boss, CNRF, really went into a posture of letting sailors support virtually. So doing their AT virtually to their supported command, as well as doing additional duty in a virtual environment, because our active is doing things in our virtual environment. So we were adaptive to the situation. I always encourage my chiefs, if we have sailors that are suffering, to make sure that if there's opportunity to make the matchmaker, to be the love connection between sailor in need and command in need, But there is opportunity abound, and all of our reserve as well as our operational support officers in our Navy just need to make sure the opportunities are listed in our zip serve, and I call it it's the monster.com of the Navy Reserve. I'm not providing any endorsement to monster.com, but it is an opportunity where we can display the jobs that are needed to match the opportunity to need. But we have seen an uptick, as well as we have funding supported that. Great question. Thank you. I think you're on mute, Travis. Might be.
Yeah, see, thanks, Dave. You muted me, man. All right. You're probably tired of hearing me talk.
No, I think I went to press mine and pressed yours.
All right. So I think I think we have one more question here. I want to pull up here because she's been really engaged with this. So I want to just kind of recognize it. So she said, what are some of the unique challenges that our senior enlisted reservists face that you don't necessarily see the active reservists face?
Yeah, boy, I want to thank you for, because as the Navy Reserve Force Master Chief, I need to spend time talking about the phenomenal nature of our reserve force. I couldn't have been prouder during COVID because we had a tremendous amount of response from our medical community, our surge main, which is our shipyard maintenance teams. They have been mobilized to the tune of about 1,300. We had mobilized sailors for the Comfort and the Mercy, as well as the IAs that we continue to do about to the tune of about 2,600 a year. So I want to have the opportunity to talk about the awesomeness of our reserve force. But to the question, what is some of the challenges that our senior enlisted? So a little bit provocative, but I will tell you. So our senior enlisted don't just have the rate skill. They actually have a lot of civilian skill and a lot of civilian experience that they bring to the table. But one of the hard things is that we're constrained to our rate. And so, you want to go out and you want to find somebody who has experience in something that we may not have in our Navy as a rate. We have it. I have a phenomenal MR Master Chief who does, amazing work with 3D printing, but we don't have a rate for 3D printing. And MR, they're doing great strides to get there, but I have the person who's a professor of an MR, of 3D manufacturing in the Navy Reserve. So we're really trying to bridge the gap of our civilian skills. We have a registry of civilian skills that the Navy may not have, and we're using that registry to kind of match the needs of the Navy. It's a little bit manual right now, and we're gonna increase to a more of an automated standpoint. But our reservists have been logging their civilian skills into a database, and arson investigation, 3D manufacturing, financial management. A lot of these skills, if you don't care about the rank or the rate, we got it. I mean, I have second class petty officers, that you would, they work for Amazon and crisis logistics. So we have a tremendous amount of a skill set in the Navy Reserve. It's been part of our job to bridge those two together, and our senior enlisted are really at the forefront of that. I said the provocative nature of it is that I don't look at the Navy as a collection, Navy Reserve, as a collection of rated enlisted sailors. And so when we made that journey of perhaps moving the rates, I would say the Navy Reserve was probably the best place to do that test bed, because our sailors are not necessarily defined by their rate. They're more defined by their special skills, NECs, and qualifications above all.
Yeah, Chris,
as well as their rate. They're also good at their rate too. No kidding.
And that's a great point. And that's a great point that I think is a good lesson to pass along to even our active duty components who bring reservists on. And I'll give you an example. After 9/11, I was an MAC at security over in Italy, and we had a second class MA show up as a reservist to help augment us. And it just turned out that he happened to be the chief of police for New York City.
Oh yeah.
So the chief of police for New York City as an MA2 getting activated. And of course, you take a skill set like that and that's where I would say, just make sure you have the reservists. Don't look at their collar. Don't just look at their rate. Sit down with those reservists that are supporting you, because you'd be shocked at the knowledge that they might have.
Yeah. I mean, I am blessed to work with the active component leadership intimately. And I'm always, I'm quite frankly, they do a good job showering me with the good cases of sailors that support them, and I very rarely have any bad cases. Our reserve sailors, those citizen patriots, they're ready to serve. They really are, and frankly, we kind of make it hard for them in some occasions. I'm not going to lie. We're doing our best to knock down those barriers, but they're ready to serve. They're ready to support. Their civilian employers could not be more complimentary of the military service. Even after 19 years of putting 2,000 to 3,000 IAs out every year, those civilian employers, they line up to take care of their sailors. So I couldn't be prouder to be the Reserve Force Master Chief and to talk about our sailors.
That's awesome, Chris. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. I think out of respect, we're going to go ahead and kind of tell me, is there any other last minute nuggets you have for everybody before we sign you off?
No last minute nuggets, just what a privilege it is to serve in the world's finest Navy. I've been listening to an audiobook and it's been really inspirational for me. And it's about this whole notion of non sibi sed patria, which is not for self, but for country. And I will tell you, as patriots of and those who, as leaders, those who raise their right hand, I am such a privilege to be in your company. Thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot, Travis. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for your time, man.
Chris, thank you so much. You bring a huge amount of value to this. You really do. And there's been a couple of comments, and I was one of them, but of just bringing the reserve component to CPO Pride Day. And I don't think that I knew before becoming the region master chief, because I worked in the same building with RCC Southwest. I got to know my counterpart. I did not know just the breadth and depth that reserve component brings to our forces. And it's a lot more than I ever expected. So thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your past experience, 2009. And I look forward to the
9 and 10. Love it.
Man, look forward to the future.
Chris, when you pop out, just give us a call.
Yeah. Hey, so one thing, you said nuggets, and I'll shut up from here, but my children got to watch CPO Pride Day because it was in the middle of Balboa Park.
Yeah.
And my wife and I took them out of school to watch CPO Pride Day. And I will tell you, my kids have been patriots ever since, to see those Chiefs, to see those Chiefs march through Balboa Park. So, keep that alive. For all those Chiefs that are listening here, you have a part in this. So support the Enlisted Leadership Development Foundation. Thanks to those sponsors, and I'm out from here. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. And I'll make sure Karen O'Connor gets those words that, it's always great when you start something. You never know where it's going to end up. And, it's pretty encouraging to hear something, for her to be able to hear that. I figured this started in 2002. And so 2009 and 10. So 8 years after she started it, 9 years. That's awesome. So, hey, listen, real quick. Before we, as a precursor before the close, I left off inadvertently as I went through my list of thank yous. There was two very important people that I just glanced over, not intentionally, but because I didn't pay attention to where I stopped with the Comrel team, and I picked up at the package sales lead team, and I left out the merchandise team. So thank you to Jess and Chris for keeping me honest, for shooting me a note on the down low. So for Deborah Sagapulele and Terry Vines, as part of that bigger team, to make this event what it is and what it's going to be again next year.
Awesome. All right. Well, look, guys, that is it. We did it.
Yes, we did it.
And let me tell you, David, and first off, I just want to say thanks for letting me be a part of this, and part of your vision, because as I've always make a plug about, all of us are on the board. We volunteer our time for this. I have my own business, but I treat my business like I did in the Navy. So this is my collateral duty. This is my civic activity. And I absolutely love, and it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So that being said, I just want to remind people, this is CPO Pride Day. I've heard people say, hey, why are we doing this without selectees? Well, because the origination is, this is our Pride Day. And for those people who are aspiring to be a Chief Petty Officer, well, guess what? This is all what is part of. And for those people who are going to, the board's going right. I think the board's already going right now.
Yeah, I think so.
And so we're right now is being selected. Our future leaders are being selected as we speak. So the bottom line is, be a forward leader, be a forward thinker. always adapt to the circumstances that we're at, and we're going to do amazing things. So, David, I think we have a few plugs that we want to do for the future events we have coming up.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. We even got asked, why are we doing it now, and why don't we do it in December after results? But guys, I got to tell you, it takes 9 months just to put this together. A lot of time and energy, and it comes with a huge financial cost. And so, we're really about keeping things as stable and consistent, and especially in this environment. So we figured, why not try this when it was supposed to be, which was originally scheduled for September 10th. So you can look for us next year, right around, I think it's going to be September 9th or 10th next year. But you'll get more on that. But yeah, so next Monday, we're starting our Foundry, our 13th Foundry class. That's, for those that don't know, that's our leadership program designed for E6s, first class petty officers. But we've had Coast Guardsmen, Air Force, as well as Navy participate in this program. One day we'll get Army and Marine. Actually, no, we had a Marine one time. So all we need left is to bring in Army. And so we're taking a 5-day course, and we're making it 5 weeks long. And it's going to be spectacular. It really is. There's some aspects, obviously, of being virtual that you won't get when you were face-to-face. But I'll tell you, there's some benefits that this class is going to get. So we have, 53 students and 7 mentors with us starting that next week. Wow. And then we got the LPO Academy. So, we've been dragging our feet a little bit, not in a negative way, but just, that's a 3-day face-to-face program for E5s. And we get probably more requests about that. That's why we do 4 of them a year. So we've been waiting to try to go face-to-face, and it's just not going to happen. So we're going to go virtual. So we picked November 16th, 17th, and 18th. Now, we're looking at submitting applications around the 30th of September. And it's probably going to be virtual. Yeah, it's going to be virtual. So instead of getting the full 3-day, 8-hour days, we're probably going to look at compressing the course a little bit, picking out the top stuff that we really think is vital. Looking at 3 4-hour sessions. So that's what you can expect for the LPO Academy. I already talked about the Stu Headley Award. You're going to be seeing some traction on that shortly. And then I think you wanted to add something, Travis.
Yeah, well, so the one thing that we are going to try to keep true, and we're going to shift it accordingly and adapt and overcome, is that, we all know over on the East Coast, they've been doing it for years with the when the results come out, they host on the USS Constitution. They have an event there. Well, for people who don't know, we do the CPO Legacy Academy over here on the West Coast on the USS Midway. Well, obviously, we can't make that happen. So we have some amazing Master Chiefs that are stepping up to the plate to help make this come to fruition. And so we are going to be doing our CPO Legacy Academy virtually as well. And we're going to be focused on doing it per the MCPON. We've interviewed MCPON, and he made it very clear that there's going to be a stand down period during the initiation this year where, there's not going to be any organized events. So we said, okay, well, what better than to make a voluntary thing that people can just log in, log out, and just come and join this on their own. And we're going to set up an amazing lineup. It's going to be very similar to what you're seeing here, where we're just going to have some great speakers, have some great fireside chats. The biggest difference between what we've done here and what we're going to do there is that it's going to be very interactive. So we're going to have an open classroom virtually where these leaders can really just have some one-on-one dialogue with our chief selectees. So we're super excited to bring that to the table. Don't have dates yet, but they will be coming soon.
That's great. That's awesome, Travis. So in closing, again, hey, thank you, everyone. As we watch the little eyeball at the top and see active viewers, you may not seem like a lot of numbers, but the people that were supposed to be here are here. But the great thing is people can go back later and watch this. So share this with others, and go and watch this. If you want to learn more about who we are, go to the enlistedleadershipfoundation.org. There's places on there where you can send us a note if you're interested in volunteering. We put the dates as we get them for participating events, the applications. There's a contact page if you have any questions about any of the programs, why we do things a certain way, or just anything. Go ahead and send it. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget, become a member. It's not a lot. Become a member, because one of the things we are creating is we are creating some member exclusive content. And so if you're not a member of the Enlisted Leadership Foundation, I encourage you to check out the website that David just mentioned. Become a member. It's not going to break the bank, I promise you. But the content that we're going to put out there will allow you to repurpose content, use it in your mess, and just share it amongst your sailors. So, man, great day, David. Thanks for putting this on.
Sure. Hey, real quick before you hit goodbye. Also, when you go to buy one of the limited edition coins, you'll see a whole bunch of other CPO mess coins there. So we invited other Chiefs messes to go ahead and let us put their coins up there. So if there's something that you like, there tells you how to. We're not selling them, and there's nothing that we get this year for that. So you can contact those respective messes and do that. But yeah, some of that repurposed content that we're looking at doing. So, man, Travis, thank you again. Everyone else, thank you so much for being here. And with that,
all right, I'll leave it with this: Navy Chief,
Navy Pride,
Navy Chief,
Navy Pride.
There we go. All right, guys. Till next time, take care and